We'll call this meeting to order.
The City of San Clemente respects the many people of different faiths who reside here. The City Council historically begins its session with an invocation offered by one of the religious leaders of our community, with full appreciation of our shared belief that we are one nation under God. And while this city cannot endorse any particular religion, we respect the religious freedom and freedom of expression of all our citizens to pray as they feel led to pray. This evening's invocation will be given by Mark Ambrose, lead pastor with Pacific Coast Church.
Welcome, Mark. Please stand and stay standing after the invocation for Councilmember Ward, who will be offering the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, let's pray. Lord, we just want to slow down before we jump into a meeting and make decisions and provide direction and acknowledge your presence here today. We've acknowledged it by 4 words put above the crest of the city, "In God we trust." And I just pray that that's a reality, not just a slogan, but something that we put into practice and depend on you. And so just pray for wisdom, discernment, understanding, unity tonight, and clarity of thought as these team of leaders are assembled to direct and guide the city. Please guide them, Lord, and we just ask your blessing upon tonight and ask that you would just provide a good and productive meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilmember Donchak. Here. Councilmember Swartz. Here. Councilmember Ward. Here. Mayor Brown. Here. And Mayor Pro Tem Ham is absent. First item on the agenda is a toll road update.
And should I start with the litigation part, James, settling in?
Yes, please, thank you.
On the litigation side, in the lawsuit filed by the city against TCA, the case management conference is to be held this Friday in Riverside Superior Court. So the city manager and I will be attending with other team members on that status conference with the judge. We expect the schedule for the briefing and steps in the case will be set there. The other part of that is that the court is set to hear Capistrano Unified School District's motion to intervene in the case on the city's side and the reserve side. So that will be happening Friday. The other thing is the city manager received notice late last week that the County Planning Commission will be taking up one element of the county's settlement with the city that we entered into late last year, and that's to eliminate the SR 241 alignment from the county's circulation element. So the Planning Commission will be hearing that next Wednesday. We have someone planning to be in attendance to watch those proceedings and participate on the city's behalf if need be.
Thank you, Scott. James, anything from you on this item? Thanks for the update. We do have a card on this item. Mark McGuire.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to comment again on the proposed toll road. And thank you again for all your efforts to fight what would be a catastrophic extension of the 241 through San Clemente. I believe we're at a milestone. I really do feel like we're at a milestone in our efforts to beat this toll road extension, but I'm not sure what that milestone is. It's either the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end. I'm hoping it's the beginning of the end. And what I mean by that is that everyone's coming to the realization that traffic projections on I-5 are not going to be what the toll road thought they were going to be in the past. And we've talked about old numbers, but even bringing them forward to the current IBI study versus the TCA's numbers that they presented to their board at the time that they settled with the environmental groups. So this is November of 2016. The IBI study that you guys had commissioned shows 207,000 daily trips on I-5 north of AVH each weekday in 2040. And the study that the TCA did in November 2016 showed 261,000 trips every day at that same location. So there's a difference of 54,000 trips projected. IBI saying that the TCA was overestimating by over 50,000 trips. Between Los Ramblas and Ortega Highway, the IBI study says 223,500. The TCA study said 277,000. So again, 50,000 off. 50,000, it's all about how much traffic there's going to be on I-5. And if there's not going to be, and if they're off by that volume, it changes everything. And I think the TCA, in their response to your IBI study, and I think someone on the dais talked about this, one of their specific follow-up statements was that the findings of relatively low volumes on SR 241 that IBI found are consistent with TCA's initial findings, and in fact support our rationale for advancing the new ideal alternative that extends the 241 to La Plata and focuses on capacity improvements on I-5. They've conceded that the 241 extension through San Clemente connecting at Pico is not necessary. There's no compelling case for it. They're talking about this alternative. They seem to say that that's their rationale for advancing that new idea. The key, which there are parts of that idea that I very much disagree with, but the key is that they're saying we don't need the 241 extension. We're moving away from that. How do we get them to embrace that to the point that they're not going to pursue that idea for the next 4 years through an environmental review process and a project review process that would terrorize our city and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for no reason? So it's the beginning of the end if we can get the TCA to agree that they don't need to pursue that option. So I'll leave it at that for tonight. But
Thank you,
anyway,
Mark.
Thanks again.
Appreciate it, sir.
Next is a presentation by Carney Campbell concerning campus activities at San Clemente High School.
Hi, Carney. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name's Carney Campbell. I'm the Link Crew president at San Clemente High School, and our ASB president was not able to be here, so I will present on what Link Crew's doing and ASB. So for Link Crew, our main focus right now is our applications for next year were turned in last week, and we're doing interviews to see what leaders we are interested in having next year. Well, I'm a senior, so I won't be there next year, but I'm helping in the process by interviewing prospective candidates. We are also continuing our after-school tutorial so that students can come and get help with a variety of subjects. Most of them are math, so we have a lot of math tutors there to help. We have some consistent students that are there. We also have some new students, so it's growing in size. So now there's 4 days of after-school tutoring help for students. We are also planning to have a movie day kind of thing at lunchtime. And that's going to be put on by the No One Eats Alone committee and the new student committee. So we're planning on having that the week we get back from spring break. And so that's pretty much it for Link Crew. We're focusing on getting ready for next year. So that's our big push right now. As for ASB, we had a pretty successful week of the Just Water campaign. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but we are working with CUSD trying to get Just Waters instead of Just Water is like the company that is sponsoring it, and we're trying to replace the plastic water bottles in our school. So that was really successful, and ASB told me that we have reduced water bottle dumping by 140,000. So that's a lot. Thank you. And so we're looking to put in more refill stations. I think we currently have 2 or 3, and we're looking to put in more so that we can reduce our waste even more. Next week, we have Multicultural Week, which is put on by our ASB, and we have events during lunch, and it's recognizing other cultures, and yeah. That is the week. So then the week after that is our spring break, so that's kind of kicking it off before spring break, and then after we have a couple more weeks until we graduate. At the end of April, we are planning on having our dance concert, and that's put on by our San Clemente High School dance team, who I think has national competition coming up. I think it's next week or the week after or something. So we're getting ready for that as well. And yeah, just kind of end of the year activities. So.
Now, is there also a theater production coming up? I believe.
Yes, Spam-A-Lot is.
Spam-A-Lot, that's right.
I'm not sure the days, but you can see the big sign on the outside of the school.
Second week of April, I think. if I'm not mistaken, so.
Yeah, that sounds right, because the first week of April is spring break, so when they come back,
They're
that makes sense.
coming back, and then I think it's 2 weekends after that.
I bet she knows graduation day.
June 7th.
To the minute. She's like 93 days, 24 hours, and
Yes.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
up today.
thank
We
you.
appreciate your reference.
Next is a report by Councilmember Swartz concerning animals available for adoption from the San Clemente Dana Point Animal Shelter.
Hi, I'm Alder. I am a 4-year-old male neutered Chihuahua.
You got to change your voice. Some higher pitch.
You know what? I'd go. I was
More
gonna,
neutered?
I was going to go with a Chihuahua type accent, but I was afraid I'd get a. You know, I'm not going to.
Do you think you can get your neutered accent down?
No,
A little higher?
I enjoy long walks, obedient training, and shelter volunteers. I am one smart cookie. I would be a good companion in a quiet home. And if you can see the lovely face of Alder, he's pretty cute. Again, our shelter is there, up inland. If you haven't been off La Plata, you have to go and take a look. We also have Joe. Joe is an 8-year-old male neutered domestic cat. He's really super cool and very sweet, as I would think almost every cat I've ever come across. Enjoys naps and taking walks around the cat room and more naps. So, and here is Jada. He's a 2-year-old female spay. She's a 2-year-old female spay German Shepherd. And if you guys know, some German Shepherds can be some of the greatest, company dogs or family dogs there are. And then we have a very cute cat without, Curly. Here we go, Curly. And Curly's their 5-year-old female spayed domestic short-hair cat. So, and then we have a whole handful of these guys in there. So get over there, man. We never had these many. This is Tyson, 4-year-old male neutered American Pit Bull Terrier. He loves being on the leash, and he's looking for a new forever home. And kitten season is coming, people. They're looking to foster out some small ones that can take care of them as the shelter does it. Again, our shelter does a great job of helping rescue these animals and keeping them and finding a good place for them. They historically have been doing a great job. Quite often, we don't have as many of these animals available. But it looks like we're into spring and it's starting to build up. And especially with this kind of weather, a lot of times with this huge storm coming through, you're going to see a lot of animals get frightened, get out there. So keep your eyes out, and please, if you know someone that can welcome a pet, be sure to have them go take a look at our shelter. Okay, thank you.
Members of the audience who wish to address council on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the City of San Clemente, but not separately listed on the agenda, may do so during the oral communications portion of the meeting. A total time limitation of 30 minutes is allocated for oral communications part 1, with each speaker being allotted 3 minutes in which to give his or her presentation. And I do have a few cards.
Michelle Schumacher with Vector Control, regarding Vector Control, sorry, Michelle Schumacher. And then after Stephanie Aguilar. Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to give you guys an update on the vector control position. It's been a really exciting year so far. I'm thankful to say that Orange County Vector Control Mosquito District was awarded an award by the California Department of Pesticide Regulation in California for their wonderful change. They've stopped baiting rats. They're now trapping the rats. So they were honored last year and received that award. They found that with the rat baiting traps that the rats like to take the food out and bring them to their home, hopefully not in our barbecues, but wherever they're nesting. And often the bait comes out of the trap. It stays until its half-life for 250 to 350 days, depending on the kind of bait. So a lot of children, pets, wildlife were having bad impacts from picking up the bait if the rats had taken it outside of the trap. So I think that's a really positive and exciting switch that vector control has done, and I wanted to share that with you. Also, we're getting close to mosquito season, so it's important to keep in mind after the rains come to go and check your backyard weekly and dump anything with standing water. Even a cap can have enough water for mosquitoes to breed. So if we share that responsibility, hopefully we can keep the spraying at bay. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Stephanie, did you want to speak on the skate park now or during the park master plan? Okay, probably if you're going to talk about skate parks regarding the parks master plan, then we'll do it for that section, right? Okay, great. Next is George Gregory. And then following George is Karen Ahola.
Good afternoon, Council. George Gregory, North Beach. I'm here to report a foul and rank law, an attack against blue-collar workers, and unfair and selective enforcement of this law. The commercial truck laws stating I cannot keep my ladder on my vehicle overnight, but you can keep a surfboard on your truck overnight, seems to be a little ludicrous. I purposely did not move to a community like Foster Ranch or Talega, knowing they had associations. Now my parking space has been taken away, given to somebody else, evidently. This whole law was orchestrated by people who constantly called up the Orange County Sheriff, wasting their time, not getting in problems for harassing or calling up and wasting the sheriff's time to persecute these poor fellows who got a ladder on their truck or got a piece of pipe. It seems silly that we can't keep a fence board on our truck, but we can keep a surfboard on our truck. This is very, very unfair. Now, some people would abuse the law if it went away and store their fleets on the streets. But if we're willing to give stickers and create a preferred parking area at North Beach so Mr. Miramar can become wealthy and rich, can't we give a sticker to the blue-collar guy? Can't we say it's okay, that's his only vehicle, he's not storing a fleet? That would stop us from, that would give us information to know that they're not storing a fleet, like Mr. Metzner, who brought this law upon us to begin with.
Mr. Who?
Metzner. Bill Metzner Plumbing, who loves to store his trucks all over the place like rolling billboards. He obviously owns more than one truck. My career has always been truck and tools, you're hired. No truck and tools, you're fired. You're homeless. You can't pay your mortgage and you can't take care of your family. This has been mean and this has come to a head. I cannot stand this anymore. I've asked several times for you folks to agendize it. I think it's time to agendize it. There's a way around this law. There's a way to solve this problem instead of snob rule. You buy parking spots for the DBA. You take mine away? How dare you? You took hundreds of parking spaces away from the blue-collar guys. And the comment, go buy a van? I can't work out of a van. I'm sorry. I just can't. So I'm asking you folks to agendize this, or let's go out in the parking lot. Any comments? Any questions?
I'm pretty sure you'd take me. I don't know if I would go in the parking lot, George.
Then agendize it, Mr. Brown. Agendize it. Let's discuss it.
I'll give you a call, George.
Any questions?
None for you. Thank you, George.
Then I'm filing suit. It's discriminatory. It's bigoted and it's mean.
Next is Karen Ahola.
Good evening, my name is Karen Ahola. I'm a San Clemente resident, and I'm here to say how disappointed and disheartened I was with the council's vote 2 weeks ago regarding the signage at the outlet mall. I believe you categorically got it wrong. And I believe this because in a time when our city has chosen to ban all signage from the freeway, which is a reflection of public sentiment and the direction this city is going in, you chose to approve 26 signs at the outlet mall. And you did so when every single planning commission, staff, design review subcommittee before you found that the signage at the outlet mall was not able to be granted because it didn't meet a signage exception permit. It didn't meet those guidelines. Somehow, this council found that it did. So as a resident who is very concerned about the atmosphere in my town, the quality of life in my town, I sat in this room and I listened to the marketing manager, very polished, saying how the red Nike swoosh would be the beacon of welcome to people arriving in San Clemente. I heard how signs and the outlet mall improve my property values. I heard from the greeter that everyone loves the outlet mall. I heard from a Chamber of Commerce member who actually commented on the fact that raspberry is a great colour at the outlet mall. I was disgusted, quite frankly, because then I heard from the residents of this city who said, please keep our quality of life, keep the look and feel of the place that we have, San Clemente. And they talked to you about how it impacted their views, how it impacted just their well-being, because they didn't want to look at signs at that outlet mall which should never have been approved. So I am greatly disappointed with this. I will say again, Councilwoman Donchak, I do not understand how previously you felt that 3 was enough and that you opposed a laundry line of signs, but now you find that 26 is fine. Councilman Schwartz, I'll say again, although I didn't know that somebody was going to ask you to recuse, I personally felt that when you said that the temporary signs should be given over and just become permanent signs, I find that unethical. And altogether, I think it was quite a shambles. You didn't even discuss whether the planning staff had actually found that the signs could be approved under the signage permit exception. There was not even any discussion of this. So I am very disappointed, like I said. You know, a previous planning commissioner had said not only no to the signs, but hell no, and I truly wish that you had had the fortitude to do the same thing. All these people extolling the developer, even the previous city clerk member who held fundraisers in her house for him, it was absolutely absurd. You didn't vote for the residents, you vote for a developer who is now suing to get temporary signage that he's not even entitled to. Over $300,000 worth of our city taxes.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay. Could we have a motion to waive reading in full of all resolutions and ordinances?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Schwartz, second by Ward. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. 4-0.
Closed session report, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The closed session discussion was not completed except for the 2 items that were handled by special counsel, one being the workers' compensation matter, and the other being the matters involving Villa San Clemente, in which I recused myself because my firm had a prior representation of a party in that case. And the rest will be continued after the public portion of the meeting tonight.
All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion, unless council staff or the public request removal of an item for separate discussion and action. I have not received any requests for removal.
I have nothing. I'll entertain
I'll
a
move the
motion.
calendar.
Second.
Motion by Donchak, second by Schwartz. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0.
The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker. Following closure of the public hearing, the City Council will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act upon the matter by motion. This evening's public hearing is to consider adoption of the 2018 Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Master Plan.
Welcome, Samantha.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Samantha Thomas, Recreation Manager. Before you tonight is a recommendation to approve a resolution adopting the 2018 Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Master Plan. My staff report will be brief, as I do have our consultant from Pros Consulting here to kind of give you a more in-depth perspective and on the findings and also the insight. Before I do so, I do want to highlight a couple of primary objectives that we covered through this process. One, with this master plan, we began this process in 2016, going out to bid through a formal RFP process. At that time, the City Council was seeking a plan that would address ongoing maintenance as well as sustainability of existing infrastructure within our beaches, parks, and recreation systems as they exist. That was intended to last over the next 15 years. Also, Council expressed a desire to address both funding and feasibility as a top priority as we move forward over the next several years. The second part of that, this plan was intended to be a system-wide plan, much different from the 1999 master plan, which was very much site-specific and addressed specific locations and things that should be taken care of within each site. So our 2018 master plan is going to be talking about our total trail system, our total park system, all of recreation as a whole. And I think it's also important to note that we are at this point mostly built out from our park system standpoint. With the Sea Summit Park System coming on, that was mostly the tail end of our park system. We do have a couple of undeveloped acres that are designated as park space, and that is briefly addressed through this plan as well as opportunities if we so choose to pursue that. This plan is going to identify very specific methods to improve the overall functionality and continue to still meet that standard level of service that we've done an outstanding job of doing for so many years, but it's about continuing that moving forward, giving what we have. And we do have well over 24 parks and miles of trails, as well as many and 2 aquatics facilities, a community center. So it's about what we can do moving forward on that end. So at this point, staff do believe that this report in front of you tonight has met all of our primary objectives, the council's objectives as well. And without further ado, I'm going to bring up Nilay Bhatt, who is with Pros Consulting. He's the vice president and principal consultant, and he's going to do a brief presentation on the methodology as well as some of our significant findings through this plan. So, Nilay.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Samantha said, I'll keep this brief. I promise I'll be done by 9 o'clock tonight. I'm just kidding.
You can sit in our closed session.
All right, so quickly to go through the agenda, I'll highlight the community input, analysis of demographics. You've seen this before. I want to quickly reiterate, and then really focus on the action plan portion. The key element, though, as we said from the very beginning, we didn't want to be a consultant from the outside coming in driving the city's vision and goals. So it has a very extensive community input process. The image that you see is actually an open public meeting at Maxburg Plaza Park. We had English and Spanish speakers, a number of kids drawing what they would love to see as well, among other pieces. Several days of stakeholder meetings, community workshops, intercept surveys in the parks, a statistically valid survey, and an online survey as well as a mobile-friendly project website for 24/7, 365 feedback called scparksplan.com. So there wasn't a single point in time from the start of the planning process where someone from the community, if they would have wanted to share feedback, wouldn't have been able to in 1 out of 82 different languages on that website as well. So very quick highlight, we asked people about strengths, opportunities, top priority, love the beaches, love the variety of offerings, love just how staff works with them as well. Vista Hermosa, Courtney Sandcastle continue to come up. Some opportunities, park equity, obviously a sustainable sand replenishment program, places for dogs to be off leash, pickleball, BMX, skate park opportunities, among other, just connectivity in general came up a lot. And then top priorities were just identify community wants. What is it that people want, need, and envision? And ensuring we have, again, a sustainable sand replenishment plan for the future. Workshops were very similar as well. Some other elements that came up at that point in time, which I'm aware that now council, you and the staff have already addressed with respect to beach hours or pool hours at Ole Hansen Beach Club. This was at a point in time. Some other things we heard were just maintenance, which was great. Wanted more emphasis on safety and security at certain places, extending the beach trail further up as well to Dressel's Beach, and updating what we have and maintaining what we have versus building new as well. This was really the key, the statistically valid survey. It was random, it was anonymous, it encompassed the entire community of users and non-users. And for us to be statistically valid for our portion, for our population, the sample size needed to be about 325. As you're well aware, we had a very engaged community and we blew past the target with close to 500 surveys. So, which is phenomenal, right? All the other mumbo jumbo, the margin of error stuff, all that just means is for anything to be reliable and valid, we have to be able to repeat the process over and over again and get similar results. What this tells us is if we were to do this 100 times, 95 out of 100 times, the results you're about to see will be in a margin of error of plus or minus 4.4% of what you see. That's what makes it defensible. That's what makes these results more reliable and not skewed, unlike any other process that we see as well. Some key things for using the parks and the quality of the parks as well, for our trails and for the beaches. Every single one of them, we had over 80% of the respondents say that they have or members of their household have visited park, trail, or beaches. This is 93% for the beach. All of these are higher than national averages, which is right at about 80%. So you have an extremely high visitation for beaches or for the parks and the trails. Very high rating in terms of quality. For the beach, this was slightly lower with about 32% or a third rating it as fair or poor. So that was slightly lower than the others, and I would have to imagine some of the sand erosion issues certainly contributed to that as well, based on the comments we heard during the stakeholder feedback. Facilities they have a need for, varied but very consistent: walking, biking trails, open space, neighborhood parks, and just lighting along the trails and shade areas came up very high. Those that are important, identical for the top two. Dog Beach came fairly high, along with small neighborhood parks and a swimming pool. Had a similar question for programs that they have a need for as well, and in that the number one by far was special events. I think you do a tremendous job. The 90th year celebration recently was fabulous too, but people want more. It's one of the things that brings the community together. Adult fitness and wellness, as we'll see in the demographics, we have an aging community to some extent. So as we go forward, that certainly is an important program area that people would like to see more of. Activating more on the beach with programs on the beach, and swim lessons as well were really important. Exactly the same in terms of programs that are important to people in their households as well. Actions that they would most like to see funded, right? Improving the existing beach trail system, developing new paved walking, biking, hiking trails. So trails were by far the top two areas that they would like to see funded. Along with that, improving existing restroom facilities. We heard about this in a few places where either they wanted a restroom or they wanted, in some cases, upgrades and or just doors on some of the restrooms at the beaches as well. And I know this has come up in the past, having doors, not having doors, but we're reflecting what was said in the survey, that's all. Reasons that prevented people from visiting more often. Really encouraging to see that the highest number of them, at the bottom, 32% said nothing. So there really were no barriers from their mind that prevented them. The top one though, about 30% said parking, right? Not aware of the locations of parks and trails was the second highest, and we'll address that in just a moment. Of some concern was the number 3, which is 17% said they don't feel safe using parks, trails, and beaches. I know you're aware of that. I know you're starting to act on that as well. But that's certainly a number that's higher than I've seen in some places. And sometimes, because surveys are at a point in time, if anything would have happened, this was in April 2017. So in the last 2 or 3 months, just before that, if something happens, those are things that are top of mind for people, and they do tend to skew their response at a point in time as well. So just more of a caveat to keep in mind when you see a result as strong as that in some cases. Participation in recreation programs nationally, 40% is a best practice number. You're at 39%, close to best practice. And I think that just speaks volumes to how well Samantha and her team do in terms of offering programs and meeting people's needs to encourage high participation. We have agencies aspire to get to 35% and maybe 40. You're already there, so that's really, really encouraging to see. The ones that said they don't participate, 50% said, I'm just too busy or not interested, right? That's usually just sort of a cop-out answer. The other 2 or 3 are more important usually, especially the second one, which is, I don't know what's offered, right? 1 out of 5 people said lack of awareness is a reason why I don't participate. Now, nationally, that is probably one of the top 3 reasons in every single community why people say I don't participate. So it's not unique here. If anything, that number tends to be higher in other places too. But this is certainly an area for us to improve. We have some recommendations towards the end of how with limited investment, this could yield much higher return in terms of increased participation and revenue as well. Ways people learn, the activity guide and magazine is fabulous. I mean, 3 out of 4 people said that's the #1 way in which they learn, followed by friends, neighbors, etc. The website's at about 30%. I do think where we have an opportunity to improve is social media. Facebook, Instagram, etc. are really low compared to what we've seen in other places. And I think that's certainly something we could do more of and help create greater awareness. Level of support, this was fairly low. We had about 31% indicate that they would want to fund improvements to the city, even the ones that are important to them. We had about a third that said not sure, and we had 38% said they are somewhat or very unsupportive of funding the improvements. They do want it, but we're unwilling to fund those. Strategies that they would support for funding sand replenishment, evenly split between the top 3, whether it's extending the metered beach parking hours or having a TOT as well, or increasing the existing TOT, or increasing the metered beach parking rates. All 3 of them were about 41 or 40% of support for those. This was extremely encouraging. We had only about 8% said they were dissatisfied, somewhat or very dissatisfied with the value that they get from the beaches, parks, and recreation department. Again, these are tremendous numbers. We had about 75% said they are somewhat or very satisfied. So for what you do, they love it. They'd want to see more improvements, but wouldn't want to fund that is sort of some of the key takeaways from these as well. Similarly, we had an online survey, identical questions, had over 360 responses here. So between the people we met in person, which was over 200 people or 250, another close to 500 in the statistically valid survey, and over 360 here, we had about 1,000 respondents, not even counting those on the website. And again, these aren't unique. There certainly could be and is some overlap, but it was still a very wide cross-section of community over a significant period of time as well. So taking all this, demographics, we continue to grow marginally as well. To some extent, we are aging. As you see at the very top right, the purple bar is, and I refuse to call them seniors, it's the active adult 55 plus population. That's going to be is and will be the largest group in San Clemente going forward, right? About 36%. So it's important in terms of ADA accessibility, in terms of some of the kinds of offerings we have, and also even splitting what we see nationally between a 55 to 69 or 70 versus a 70 or 75 plus population. Those 2 age groups recreate very differently, right? So you have a very active 55 plus population as well. And so whether it's sports like pickleball, whether it's more connectivity with trails, ADA accessibility, or even how we price and market things, all of those will get impacted by this as well. We did a program assessment working with staff of all these different core program areas, and the intent was to look at how are we currently managing these offerings. So staff has worksheets where they look at the system-wide and will continue doing so annually to see where are programs in their life cycles, which ones are in the introduction or takeoff stage, which ones are mature, growing, or declining as well. And also tying programs to a philosophical value, whether it's essential, important, or value added, and tying that to cost recovery goals as well. So we're ensuring programs are focusing on financial sustainability as well as meeting community needs. And over time, we continue focusing on innovating the program pipeline, so programs that aren't successful are either repositioned or eliminated, and new programs that meet the community's needs continue getting introduced as well. We had our consultant partners with RHA Landscape Architects that assessed every single park in the system, and this is documented in the appendix of the report. So every single park had the amenities listed along with individual recommendations or observations for those sites. Every amenity was also ranked based on excellent, good, fair, or poor, and these then influence the capital improvement plan as well in terms of what each park's updates or recommendations might be for improvements. Along with that, every park had a narrative with respect to the evaluation for that park, as well as recommendations specific to that park as well. So while we're not master planning any single park, like Samantha said earlier, we are still providing feedback by every single park to see what needs to be improved, what are some opportunities at that park as well. And then again, it's based on the extent of damage or repair required that determines the timeline for how soon some of that might need to be done. Equity mapping, so we looked at all the inventory that exists here as well between us, the schools, the beaches, the total inventory by different park types, different amenity types, and thus the level of service afforded to the community. Based on that, we made some recommendations, and really being mindful of the fact that we're not, again, being close to build out, we're not looking to build a whole bunch of new things, but either have additional partnerships or look at how we can revamp or upgrade what exists as well in the city currently. Just some examples of equity mapping to show gaps or overlaps in service areas, so you can see how each area is served by every amenity type, whether it's neighborhood parks, ball fields, multi-purpose fields, playgrounds, shelters, pavilions, skate park, or even tennis courts, right? And these give us a good sense in terms of decision making for you all as well to say, if we need more of something, where could this possibly go? If we have overlaps, where could something be possibly repositioned? We had a similar situation in Carlsbad, where in some places we had overlapping tennis courts and we recommended some to become pickleball courts, which they are now. But then we also recommended adding tennis courts in other areas. So it's a defensible decision-making tool for you and the staff. And again, it's hard to dispute what the gaps and overlaps are when you see it clearly on the map. So all that sort of came together into key recommendations by 5 major areas, right? So for land, facilities, beaches, focusing on creating a sense of safety and security. And keep in mind, these are strategies that are individual tactics. Staff has more of a work plan where, since this is a living document over the next 5, 10, 15 years, they're going to keep assigning performance metrics, who's responsible for this over a period of time as well. So this isn't completely set in stone. It is for you to evaluate and use this as a living, functioning document, right? So implementing the citywide trail master plan, additional opportunities for indoor recreation space, just keeping abreast with trends for other outdoor rec amenities, whether it's pickleball, fitness trails, or fitness zones along the trails as well, or maybe multi-age play structures. We hear a lot about just off-leash dog access or beach access. So we've identified a few specific parks and sites where there could be the possibility for off-leash areas as well. Expanded access to offerings, whether it's lighting or hours of operation, so we maximize the use of what we have as well. Public restroom offerings need to be enhanced. That came up several times, as did ADA accessibility. And then site-specific master plans. A part of this is, unlike the 99 plan, system master plans are recommending site-specific plans as a part of your implementation. So these are the top 4 we identified. In speaking with staff as well, I'm aware that San Luis Ray Park will probably be the first one coming to you in terms of upgrades and things that can be added, expanded, modified to that site-specific master plan. But best practices indicate that every year, at least 1 or 2 of these site-specific plans should be updated for you to now use the findings and the community needs from the overall master plan and see which one of these parks could best accommodate some of those needs. And then just, you've done a fabulous job with the trails, especially the beach trails. So more opportunities for walking and trail connectivity are some of the broad strategies that we recommend for land facilities and beaches. Complementing that with programs, and the biggest aspect was, just keep doing what you are with serving unmet community needs. You've got a very high participation, close to 40%, but additional teen programming, looking at adult programming or senior education programs. People wanted a lot of events or programs on the beach. We have a high Hispanic Latino population to some extent, a lower income population that could really benefit from Learn to Swim programs that you're doing as well. Other trending programs, whether it's pickleball or esports or something else that comes up in the next 2, 3, 4 years, keeping mind of that and just being aware would be great. Staff has the program assessment report on the tool, so it's certainly looking at opportunities with respect to performance indicators, measuring what's working, what's not, and using that from a program life cycle standpoint to also ensure that we keep innovating constantly to meet the community needs. Similar to park master plans, best practices would indicate having mini business plans for every program area for how are you managing it? Who is the target audience? Who are your competitors? How are we promoting this? How are we pricing it? How are we capturing feedback? So you're managing every program from a data-driven standpoint and not just because that's the way we've always done it, right? And then lastly, we don't have the resources, nor do we have the capacity to be all things to all people. And so the intent is how can we maximize and leverage partnerships for either space or offering programs as well with respect to joint use where we can. Funding is a huge part of this, and one of the things as we talk through this, we're pricing based on what we've done before or what somebody else does. We don't have a very good handle on what the true cost of service is, which is what does it cost us today to provide that particular program or service, right? Oftentimes, and it's not unique here, it's everywhere, people think if I pay $10, that's what it must be costing the city to provide, and it's never true. So the intent is recognizing and communicating the level of subsidy every person gets the moment they step into a program or at a pool or at an event. So we understand that for every dollar you're spending, your tax is subsidizing the remaining $9 for that program, and you use that to drive fees and charges in the future, as well as diversify revenue opportunities to look beyond taxes and general fund support or user fees for what's out there. So that's where a revenue enhancement and a recreation fee study would be critical for you to look at exploring those options. Other funding opportunities, I think you do a good job with grants, but there are options for crowdfunding. The National Recreation and Park Association has a crowdfunding platform called Fund Your Park, where cities all around the country serve up projects that they want their community to fund. Special use, anything from universally accessible playground to skate parks to even arts and craft programs have been crowdfunded as well. So that's a great opportunity, whether it's GoFundMe, NRPA's Fund Your Park, or something else, but one to look at. Naming rights, sponsorships, endowments, all of those are more and more avenues that public agencies around the country are looking at right now, as long as it fits the values of your community, right? That's really critical. And then positions where you can, right, whether it's hiring staff or contract staff for grant writing or sponsorships, those positions more than pay for themselves, right? So if you can get specialized positions that are focused solely on seeking and generating revenue for you, they are well worth everything you would pay them if you get the right fit and the right person, right? Dedicated funding source for sand restoration, I know you're aware of that too. And if you do the revenue and enhancement study and the pricing study, it's really critical to train your staff on that. So not only do they understand what true cost of service means, they're able to communicate that and use that to better price programs and ensure long-term financial sustainability for the city as well. Couple more things. As you saw, 20% of the population or the respondents said barriers to communication or lack of awareness is the number one reason they don't participate. So 3 major things in this: having a marketing and branding plan, a standalone brand identity, a logo for the department as well, and dedicated staffing would be exceptionally helpful, right? Unlike other departments, Parks and Rec have to compete with everybody, from Netflix and video games to neighboring agencies to the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and all the others. So having a way to better tell their story, not to cannibalize, but complement the city's brand would be powerful, right? You've got a great brand. People love the city's brand. There's an affinity for it. So how can we further expand that? And then even use things like social media for revenue generation, whether it's the 90th year celebration merchandise or any other way we can do that. I think those are ways that we would, as a department, really benefit with dedicated investment in marketing. And what we've seen nationally is about $1 spent on marketing in Parks and Rec usually results in anywhere between $7 to $11 in return on investment based on increased participation. So I think fundamentally shifting the mindset from thinking of marketing as an expense to thinking of it as an investment to build a brand would be very helpful as a part of this plan as well. And lastly, tying everything to maintenance and operations, cleanliness and safety came up a lot, so ensuring we have a clean, safe environment, whether it's increased safety lighting, cameras, park rangers, or having a service request system. There are Parks and Rec agencies that have apps. There's one called Happy Feet that allows people to share feedback from anywhere in a park, on a beach, or a trail, anonymously and in real time based on GPS locations, right? So people have the ability to use technology, strategies for mitigating sand erosion as well, funding sources, merging maintenance contracts, storage solutions, right? When you have limited space and our rec center is maxed out, having greater opportunities for storage would allow for interchangeable and scalable use. More preventative maintenance where we can as well, especially to minimize future capital replacement funding. You're starting to do a really good job of that, but continuing the design standards, back to the branding. So every park bench, every trash can, every receptacle looks and feels the same no matter where you are. Your bike racks are a perfect example of that. And then just more staff training, right, where you can continue to help grow that element as well, both from the right type of staff with respect to functional specialization, but also the right staffing levels with respect to having the director or deputy director of the positions you need, and specialized positions with respect to a grant writing or marketing or PIO positions as well. So I'm going to stop with that and certainly turn it over to questions and comments as you have.
Steve?
Actually, mostly comment. As chair of Beaches, Parks and Rec, the last time that we went around doing a master plan for our recreation department, I enjoyed meeting with you and discussing this and going over this. I just want to let everyone know what we're talking about here is a master plan that lays out the overall concept of where we're going to be or what we want to do. It's not like the last time where they went through in detail, we're going to do this, 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 this. This gives us the ability and flexibility to respond within the scope of this master plan as we are presented with opportunities or as we're presented with the needs of our community. An example is pickleball. So, we're not tonight deciding, yes, we're going to put a pickleball court in this spot. What we're deciding tonight is, yeah, we can adopt this master plan, which includes the ability to put pickleball courts where it comes back to us through Beaches, Parks and Rec Commission. They think it should be here, they think it should be there, we should convert this one, however it is. So again, this gives the commission as well as us the capability to, with an overview on the master plan without having to be so site-specific in what we're offering. So it's a very good job. What I also want to make sure everyone understands is that our ratio of recreational facilities and acreage per capita is one of the highest we have out here. I was presented that information last go-around. So it's, we have an awful lot. And don't forget, our beaches are still, the beach is part of our recreational facilities. So you add that recreation, all those acreage in, along with everything else we have. We'll have an area, and we have a big department that has to take care of it all. So, but I appreciate your efforts on this.
Thank you.
Steve, Lori, anything, questions? Okay, no questions for the, okay. Kathy, any
thank you.
questions?
I just have a quick question. I read somewhere a comment about, and I couldn't find it, I was trying to find it while you were talking, commercialization of amenities. What does that mean?
Partnerships, where we can as well. So whether it's public-private partnerships, where you have the opportunity to have other providers provide that, versus us having to, again, do all of it ourselves.
Thank you. I couldn't find it in here. That's what I was flipping through, trying to figure out. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I wish there had been numbers on the slides. You blew by one that talked about instead of sand, you were going to use fiber, or
Right.
what
was
is that?
specific to a park as well. Just again, it's and so different surface, more like turf as well, but softer surface, rubberized
Oh,
surface.
so it's not a granular
Yeah.
sand substitute, it's like resilient flooring?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add, when the commission, Beaches, Parks, and Rec Commission originally sent up our big sports park and our sports center and our aqua center and everything else, when we wrapped that all together out of the commission, the concept was always to have it available for like a YMCA or some other group to come in and manage and run it. So that's, I think, the commercialization was, if we can find a partner to run so that they can bring in also programming that our people can benefit and maintain a high-quality thing. That was all part of the concept, too, which we may also look at.
I wanted to ask you, did you have anything else, Lori? I wanted to ask you a question about the trails system, because in San Clemente, we've done a good job with open space, and we've maintained an extensive trail system. Is there a community, in your experience, and I think you'd mentioned you've done 150 different cities on this, something to that amount, so is there a city that matches us in terms of the trail system, and is there, or has somebody improved on it? You know, somebody who's close to us but has some advantages over it. So I'm just curious from your experience, because the combination of the beach but with all this open space behind us is very unique. Maybe Malibu would be close.
I was actually going to say Malibu, yeah.
Malibu.
I do the Malibu master plan, so I could certainly talk to that some. They don't have quite the quality of beachfront trails the way you have, because nobody wants anyone on the beach, because every beach is my private beach. So a lot of the house fronted the beaches, so that was harder. In terms of the beachfront trails, you're fabulous, right? In terms of an interconnected network, so going from anywhere in the city to anywhere else, Durango, Colorado is one of the best ones I've seen, right? 20,000 population only. They serve about 60,000 plus between the city and the county, so closer to your population from that standpoint. They serve over 400,000 visitors that come in, and they have over 6.5 miles of trails per 1,000 people, right? Which is massive, right? That's a lot. So, but that's what they really fund. That's huge, and there's a reason why they are a national gold medal agency, right? So I'd say among an interconnected network of trails, both between walking, biking, hiking, mountain trails, they are probably the best I've seen.
Okay.
So, does that answer your question?
No, that was the top ask.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, about that
Yeah.
combination.
And there's not much more you can do. I think we discussed this briefly yesterday with respect to extending the beach trail a little bit, and I know you alluded to that as well. But as much as you can do, you've already done a really good job, right? So part of it is maintaining what you've got,
right,
and ensuring whether it's, like we said, some fitness zones or amenities, or just ensuring people feel safe at all parts of the trails. Those would be some ways to improve the overall experience.
You know, I'm on the trails obsessively all over the city, and signage is hugely important because we also connect, you can walk to St. Margaret's from my house if you know the trail system, or you can go on a bike, but you have to know what you're doing, and there's county trails and there's city trails, so signage with maps goes a real long way. And then a basic thing such as naming the trails. There's somebody in the audience here who was telling me they went to a fun run on one of the trails, and I said, "Oh, which trail?" And they didn't know the name of it. And I said, "Well, where was it?" And they said, "Behind Talega." And so naming our trails so that people know, you say the beach trail, we all know where that is.
Right.
The Ridgeline Trail, we all have 5 different ideas of where that might
Correct,
be, for example.
absolutely,
Yeah, so naming the
absolutely.
trails, signage with maps would go a great, and an app would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And signs at the parking trailheads.
That's great. All right.
I have one last question on trails. It said, implement the citywide trail master plan. Don't we already have that? Is it just not put together enough?
The trails exist, it's the, to use your term, the marketing that is missing, because, for example, most of the trails have trash cans, most of the trails have dog waste receptacles, most of the trails are extremely safe and have Wi-Fi, if you were in an emergency, you could easily connect. It's just nobody knows they're out there, or people are afraid that going from sea level to elevation change might be beyond their ability.
So better descriptions of who can, how hard they are? I thought we already had that, like difficulty.
Yeah, it's like skiing, the black diamonds,
Right.
double black diamonds, the green ones, the bunny slope,
Okay. Because I know we have a map of all of them. So isn't it always in our parks, our booklet? Okay. I thought it was, because when I first moved back here, that's one of the first things I looked at. So, okay.
You guys want to hear from the public on this item? That'd be okay. Great. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing on this one. Did I open the public hearing on it? Yeah. Open the public hearing. We'll start with Stephanie Aguilar. Following Stephanie is Rodell Barba. What the? I glue that on there.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stephanie Aguilar, and I'm here representing the San Clemente Skate Park Coalition. I attended most of the Beaches, Parks, and Rec meetings, the master plan meetings, and I saw what a long and challenging process the creation of this master plan was. I'm really proud and very impressed with all of the Beaches, Parks, and Rec commissioners for how much thought went into each and every decision that went into the master plan. The commissioners tapped into the heart of San Clemente and kept the best interests of our community as top priority for every single category they discussed. I feel like a lot of passion was behind the decisions that went into those recommendations. It was a really neat process to watch, actually. And I think we're all lucky to have those particular commissioners serving our community. They did a really good job. We have a lot of really big issues in our community, and our coalition, the San Clemente Skate Park Coalition, would like to thank the city for keeping our group in mind and recognizing the need for additional skate amenities in our city. I am now currently serving as a board member of the Friends of San Clemente Foundation. We are working on the planning of the 2018 SC Open, which will raise funds for the skate park. We have some upcoming fundraisers in the works to reach our $50,000 goal. We have raised $25,000 so far, and we're hopeful that the next $25,000 goes quickly and smoothly. So that's basically it. Thank you for your support. We're looking forward to partnering with the city to improve skate park amenities in San Clemente, and our group is here to answer any questions and to help as much as we can along the way with that.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Stephanie. Rodell? Okay. Rodell, after Rodell is Marty Weinberg. I'm sorry, who are you, sir?
I'm Riddell Barba.
Okay.
Marty
Following is Marty. Marty, great. You're next up. All right, great. Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name's Riddell Barba, a resident before Richard Milhouse Nixon got here, which is very cool. I teach for the city of San Clemente, obviously pickleball, and also I'm president of the United States Professional Pickleball Association, so I'm kind of upbeat on what's happening nationally with pickleball. I taught the first pickleball class here in 2016. Since then, I've taught at least 6 sessions of pickleball. I've been to the max attendance. The latest class, which started 2 weeks ago, has 16 beginners and a standby roster, and obviously mostly seniors. All from San Clemente, by the way. I've introduced pickleball to at least, I'd say 250 students, I'd say. And a lot of them must travel out of town to play, because we don't have pickleball courts, obviously. The classes are full, and the city is making significant revenue from that. And I haven't even tapped on that, but that's the reality of it, which is great. Great for the city and great for us. Let's see. So once again, the large numbers crowd for our own courts. San Luis Rey Park is up and coming for renovation, and that would be our pick for sure because of the parking and also the location of it. And there's allegedly this game called lawn bowling there. We've never seen too many people play there, but that's a big piece of property that's just sitting there, and I understand that another gentleman or a group, they want to try to resurface that for about $265,000, I heard. And for that, we could probably have 30 pickleball courts. So basically, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Let's see here, what else? Okay. Oh yeah, in your baby packet, you'll see the press we've received from pickleball. Matter of fact, in the latest 90th anniversary of the Journal, which was great stuff in there, there happened to be a nice little thing about a picture and an article about pickleball in our 90th celebration. So I think that shows us how significant pickleball is for us seniors and how important it is for us to be able to play. And anyway, so I think we have several pickleball people who want to speak if possible. But once again, on the last part of it, of that is a bid from a company that does pickleball courts regarding upgrading what we have existing courts. You probably look and notice that on one tennis court you can have 4 pickleball courts, and that was really the good thing about that. That can really host 16 people having fun all at the same time versus in tennis. Which would be 4 if you're playing doubles. And I'm speaking as a professional because I'm a former tennis tour player myself, so I can tell you firsthand that for us older seniors, we love pickleball, we love tennis, but once again, I think it's a priority for us, and I've already talked about us putting painted lines down because I'm really kind of looking out the window here to see if it's going to rain because I'm currently putting chalk lines on the courts myself, and if it doesn't rain, I'm going to be there 5 o'clock tomorrow morning putting chalk lines for our courts, and that's unacceptable. So I'm hoping that...
Thank you, Rodell.
That we can get agendized. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Weinberg. Following Marty is Julie Shields.
Good afternoon. I'm Marty Weinberg. I'm a resident of San Clemente. And quick shout out to Riddell. I was actually one of his first students in his first class in December of 2016. And I just enjoy playing pickleball. First of all, I want to apologize by what I'm wearing. I came straight from the pickleball courts, and I actually traveled over here from the courts, and I didn't play in San Clemente. Why might you ask that I didn't play in San Clemente? Because we don't have courts in San Clemente. And I'm just here to reinforce that we really need courts in San Clemente. And pickleball is pretty addictive for me. It's fun, we get our exercise, it's a social event. And I brought this paddle up here, not to show you what a pickleball paddle is, but because it's part of me. I'm addicted to pickleball. So I'm holding it in my right hand. That's because I'm right-handed. So I had to learn how to eat with my left hand. I had to shift with my left hand when I'm driving. But so I challenge any of you if you haven't played pickleball. Well, Chris Ham, he plays pickleball. He's probably not here tonight because
he's playing.
Oh, I was going to say.
He's addicted too.
I was going to say he probably feels awkward.
Yeah, he phoned in and said he was in a
holding
pickle.
this
Yeah.
Pickleball.
Actually, I'm
paddle.
sorry, he's firefighting, so we'll give him an excuse.
But, yeah, I challenge all of you to play pickleball. You'll be addicted. The only problem is you'll have to hold a pickleball for the rest of your life, a pickleball paddle. But seriously, we have to travel to go play pickleball. And a good example is we travel to Encinitas. There's 16 courts in Encinitas. 8 courts in Oceanside where they have tournaments. Carlsbad has indoor and outdoor courts. Dana Point, indoor and outdoor courts. San Juan Capistrano, where I just came from, they have 4 courts and 4 more in the works. Laguna Niguel, they have 8 courts. The regional park just put in 4 new courts. Lake Forest, 4 courts. Laguna Beach has courts, and I was just invited to go play in Newport at Bonita Canyon where they built new courts. So all these places that we go to, we don't just play, we actually eat dinner. I'm missing Taco Tuesday tonight with about 20 people that we meet, and so we spend our money in these outlying communities. And I just think it's an easy and obvious decision to build pickleball courts here because we want to stay and play here in San Clemente, and we want to invite our friends to be here. And so, you know, they'll be shopping here at the Outlet Mall or on Del Mar or El Camino Real and visiting the restaurants and spending their money here. So I guess
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
done. Okay, in closing, I just want to say I appreciate you listening to my comments, and I hope you'll consider them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie Shields. Following Julie is Anita Dewey. Yeah.
Well, good evening, Mayor Brown and members of the council. My name is Julie Shields. I'm actually a resident of Dana Point, so your neighbor. But since there's like a Dana Point San Clemente animal shelter, I feel like we're close neighbors that way. I'm here to also urge you to consider adding permanent pickleball courts in San Clemente. Recently, I had the opportunity to take classes, pickleball classes in San Clemente from Riddell Barba, who is an amazing asset to your recreation department. It's fabulous every time we take classes. They're packed. More and more people are attending all the time to capacity. But that's the only time we can play in San Clemente because, as he mentioned, he has to get up at 5 a.m. and do a very laborious project of lining the courts, putting nets together, setting those out. When, as Marty mentioned, when we come to San Clemente, and it's Dana Point residents as well as San Clemente residents, but then after pickleball, we go to lunch, we eat at the restaurants, we shop, we patronize all the San Clemente places as well. So again, I would just hope that you would consider as soon as possible adding some permanent pickleball courts in San Clemente because you have a fabulous city. It sounds like a great recreation plan and program, but it would be further enhanced for the aging population, which I am one of, and all the residents of San Clemente if you would also make those permanent courts for pickleball a reality. Thank you.
Anita Dewey, followed by Richard Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I am here representing Betsy Jorgensen, who sent you an email recently, last night. Actually, I don't know that you've had the chance to review it, but just wanted to reiterate her points. I thought they were extremely salient. As you've heard, we're very excited about the potential to have, at least at a minimum, in the short term, immediate term, a painted court, just the lines on it. We'll figure out how to do everything else that's necessary, but at least getting one court to have painted pickleball lines on it. The second was to include, well, I was very encouraged by the plan that you presented and the acknowledgement of the interest both nationwide and in this community specifically for pickleball. It may not have appeared as aggressively initially, maybe in 2016 or 17, but that tide has certainly turned, as other local communities have discovered. The best reason for doing this is, as was mentioned most recently by Julie, is the revenue for the city. When people come to play, they don't just go home. They stay where they are and visit the local retailers, the local restaurants. They build community, and that's what we want. So I commend you again on the plan. I commend you guys for your obvious interest in listening to us and building a master plan that can accommodate shifts and evolution. So, thank you.
Richard Dean. Richard is Susan Ambrose.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Richard Dean. I reside in Mission Viejo. I don't spend a lot of time in Mission Viejo. I actually just sleep there because a lot of the time when I'm not doing other things, social time, I play pickleball. Could I ask anybody, the audience or everybody, before tonight, has anyone not heard of pickleball? Great, one. So that proves to me, thank you. Don't worry, because this time last year, I'd never heard of pickleball. Never heard of it, okay? Sorry about the dialect. My colleague or my country person from earlier was a very, very well-spoken lady, and this isn't Australian, by the way. This is a Northern English accent. I just need to explain, okay? So yes, don't be ashamed you've not heard of pickleball, because like I say, I had never heard of pickleball. In fact, I only heard of it last May. Since then, I've played it countless times. I've met hundreds and hundreds of people. A lot of those, I can actually say, are friends. We're a pickleball community. It's not just a game. It's not just a game for old people. Where we play now in San Juan, there's a 13-year-old boy who's playing it. And he says he's frustrated because none of his friends play it. And I said to him, don't worry, because in a few years' time, they'll all be playing it. Trust me, this game is infectious. I played a lot of sport in England. I played sport to not a bad standard, actually. But this game has totally captivated me. Absolutely. Nothing has ever done this to me. No sport. It's just an amazing game. And trust me, your survey of congratulations of 500 people for the city of San Clemente, there will be more than 500 people in San Clemente playing pickleball on a regular basis. Can I just make a point? Riddell has can I read his title? Riddell is the official dedicated pickleball instructor for the city of San Clemente. Dedicated. This guy will, as he's just said, unfortunately, because there is not a designated pickleball court, not even marked out, he has to get up at 5 a.m. and chalk the lines. For people who have gone on your website, learn to play pickleball. They paid a fee to sign up. It's a 4-week course, beginners learn to play pickleball. What happens last Wednesday, due to our inclement weather, our English inclement weather, it had to be cancelled.
Thank you, Richard.
Can I just make a point, one last point?
Another few seconds.
Okay, you mentioned swimming lessons. How would it be if the council, the city says, let's have some swimming lessons? How would you feel if those people turned up, residents, for swimming lessons, and there was an empty pool? There was no water in it.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Susan Ambrose. Following Susan is Vern West.
Good evening, Mayor Brown and fellow city councilmen and ladies. Thank you so much. I'm here this evening as the chairperson of the Coastal Advisory Committee. At their request, I attended 5 of the 6 meetings of the Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Commission. We missed the first one because none of us knew about it. I read about it in the SC Times. That said, I want to compliment the commissioners of Beaches, Parks, and Recreation, as well as staff, Samantha, and the great team that you've got working for you there, for an outstanding job, not only working with community members, but with each other in dialogue, discussion, really astute comments made, especially with various revisions of the plan as it came before them. They welcomed and invited the public to come to the table, and some of the members here who testified previously will also agree with me that at times there was standing room only to get a place at the podium. That said, I also want to, and I hope that you do recognize all these efforts that they gave as volunteers to the city, and I agree with Stephanie that they just, as commissioners, their outreach and contribution to the city of San Clemente was outstanding and continues to be. I also compliment you for undertaking the preparation of Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Master Plan as it connects to the general plan. And I highlight that there is a shared vision for beaches, parks, and recreation in all aspects of what we do in the city. Sadly, what we noticed, and I noticed in attending the meetings and reviewing the plans, the element for beaches is sorely missing. This is really a parks and recreation plan. And I really call your attention to this, not only because I sit on the Coastal Advisory Committee, and I have for 8 years as a volunteer, but because I've lived in the city of San Clemente for 25 years and have been a long-time coastal advocate. Our beaches are the most important natural resource we have in our city, not only because of the vital gift they give to our community members who like to take walks on the sand, who enjoy just the vision of the sand, the games that they can play on the sand, they enjoy the picnic, anything that's just related to ocean activities, whether it's surfing, whether it's whatever they're doing out there, jet skiing, whatever it is, canoeing, whatever they're choosing to do, swimming, a big factor. I look at this and say, what happened here? And it's not only about the beauty of beaches. The beaches that we have in San Clemente, we have 10 city beaches, are not in this plan. And we rely on our beaches to give us economic vitality to the city. They not only support our city in terms of what people spend for our businesses, but also the million of visitors, I'm not exaggerating, state parks. You know, the state park down here has over 1 million visitors every single year. Those people come to enjoy not only state park beaches, but our city beaches and our amenities that we have here. I urge you, please, the recommendations we have from Coastal Advisory, the commissioners also approved, and that is if you're not going to include beaches in the master plan, which is called Beaches, Parks and Recreation Plan, then please eliminate the word beaches from the title. And should you do so, then we ask you to create and develop a separate beaches master plan so that you can address the needs of our beaches for our city. And one last thing, if you would also consider representatives from the Coastal Advisory Committee when you do, should you develop a separate beaches master plan. Thank you. I apologize for going a couple seconds.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next is Vern West. Any more cards on this item?
No.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Vern West. Have you had enough pickleball yet? Because you're going to hear some more, and you're going to hear it more and more and more. This is the fastest growing sport in the United States.
It's great. Are you a resident by chance?
This is a pickle paddle.
Yeah, where are you from?
I live in San Clemente for 37 years. I have a business here, as well as my family has other businesses here. Here's a pickleball. Here you go, here you go. It's harmless. It reminds you of a paddle that we used in kindergarten many, many years ago. The principal used one, and then in fraternity life they used something like that. I think he's seen it, but it's. And I'm coming here a little different. I'm 80 years old, and I'm playing pickleball. I used to play a lot of tennis, a lot of activities, and through different health issues, can't do that anymore. And I discovered pickleball through the city of San Clemente. My daughter, who lives here and has a business here, introduced me to that, and we're both livid on it now. We just play it all the time. But we don't have a place to play. We try to play in courts, tennis courts. The tennis players kind of get after us. The nets are not right. The marking's not right. Riddell marks things with chalk that get washed off, cleaned off by the tennis players. So we desperately need some dedicated tennis courts. I've been taking a lunch break down at Del Rey. I never see anybody down there at lunchtime. And I've done this week after week. So we have an opportunity. You have the facility. It's not that expensive. And San Clemente has the chance of being the pickleball center of South Orange County, and I think it's an opportunity we should really consider. So for the city council, what I'm urging is we push pressure down to the Parks and Rec or wherever department handles this, so we can all get out there and play pickleball. That's right, that's how you do it. You probably played a little bit. That's great for seniors. We want you to come back out there. So time is kind of the essence for me. I want to play with my 13-year-old grandson because he's going to go into high school, San Clemente High School next year, and I'm sure he's going to get on to sports and girls. And the other reason time is essence for me because of my age. I want to get as much pickleball in as I can. And Marty, I do play right-handed. And I do eat left-handed. I always have. I can't figure out which way to go. Thank you. I hope we get some consideration from you.
Thank you, Vern. Great, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Kathy?
I wanted to make a quick comment on something I heard from Ms. Ambrose. I believe I read in the report that we can't eliminate the name beaches in this. It has to do with grant opportunities, so we don't want to consider eliminating that from this plan. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to hear staff's point of view too, because beaches seems like it's in here. It's
welcome.
It's a couple things. I appreciate the feedback. I respect where you're coming from. As of a simple word search, the word beach and recommendation with respect to a beach appear in the document 184 times. While there might not be a section about the beach, just like there isn't a section about a park, every aspect from dog access to the beach, trails on the beach, restrooms along the beach, beach programs, beach special events have repeatedly come up throughout the plan. In the executive summary, one of the recommendations that we didn't fit in this entire slide here also speaks about a beachfront specific master plan as well as a part of implementation, just like we recommended park specific master plans too. So with respect to keeping a system-wide perspective, we're very cognizant. There couldn't be multiple recommendations about sand erosion if there wasn't a beach. So clearly, in a number of places, we've made it very conscious effort to ensure the beach is included because that came up in public feedback as well. And also, just with respect to your RFP, if you mentioned beaches, parks, and recreation master plan in the RFP, if you were to change the name, it wouldn't now stick to what the original RFP's intent was, and the document and its changed name will not be eligible for grant funding possibly going forward as well. So even if there was no mention of the word beach in it, which 184 times over there is, that would be a challenge, but we've been very mindful of that, and from the very beginning, staff has always insisted that this is also about the beaches, but not only about the beaches. So we've been very cognizant of that. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Okay.
I appreciate it. It's just something I heard and I remember reading it.
Of course.
So I wanted to point that out.
Lori?
So I wanted to, first of all, thank you very much for a very thorough and comprehensive and easy to absorb presentation. Attachment 8 talks about the money, which was objective number 2 or 3. And I just wanted to call to the public's attention and also to my colleagues. We're talking about a $35 million decision package tonight. To Councilmember Schwartz's point, we're not saying let's spend the $35 million. It's just important for us to understand that that's the level of investment it's going to take to make sure that our parks, beaches, parks, and recreations enjoy the level of standard that they currently do. So I wanted to put that out there. In terms of an idea, we have the CARE program currently, and through the CARE program, someone like myself could get a bench to, for $5,000 to celebrate a loved one or whatever I wanted to do. On this attachment 8, there's some wonderful things that there might be a resident interested in underwriting. And so what I'd like to, if I can get consensus here, is direct staff to expand the CARE program. And just for those of you in the audience who don't have access to attachment 8, for $100,000, you could sponsor the scoreboards at Richard Steed Memorial Park.
Everyone stand up that wants to be on that?
Yeah, right. We need, what did I see that sounded pretty cool? We need green screens on the tennis courts. We need, for $80,000, you can replace the batting cage at Vista Bahia Sports Park. Anyway, there's some things here that seem kind of contained and turnkey, and we might want to put them out there in the event there is somebody who has that level of generosity available to them, because there's about 60 items over the next 15 years that need attention. Or a group, yeah, that's an excellent idea. Councilmember Schwartz is saying a group, like a Rotary or an Exchange Club. So I wanted to put that out there. The other thing I wanted to build on, creating this sense of safety and security. I have looked at a lot of park master plans across the country just because I'm curious, and a lot of them have an ambassador program or a park steward program.
Yes.
And so, for example, in Anchorage, Alaska, they have 125,000 hours of volunteer service a year. And these are people that, just like we have the Adopt a Beach program, you could adopt a park. And I don't know if there's uniforms or not. I don't know if it's an extension of the RSVP group and we just, drop the age to be more inclusive. But the idea of putting our residents in the space so that they can welcome people and, so I wanted to bring that idea up under safety and security, and also just in terms of talking up our stuff.
Yeah. If I may add to that, Roanoke, Virginia has an excellent ambassador program for the greenways, which are people with essentially yellow jackets volunteering on the greenway for helping people from everything from signage to where are the restrooms, or how do I get from this point to that point, etc., and just sharing a certain sense of ownership with other place.
Yeah.
All volunteers, they're out there all the time, and it's extremely powerful, and they really complement the city's brand too. So you're right, it's very successful, and certainly something you could do here.
Yeah.
Steve?
Samantha, a couple things. One, I'm trying to remember. I'm not 80 yet, but I'm pushing 71. So when I was on Beaches, Parks and Rec, I could have, as chair on that, I could have sworn we had like volunteer park rangers. Didn't we used to have a volunteer park rangers that actually had like some type of shirt or something?
Yeah, I don't know that we had volunteers. You might be correct. I do know what we have currently is actually a park monitor program. It's a part-time staff position, and we've probably got about a dozen park monitors now. And one of the recommendations in this plan is actually to look at potentially elevating those folks to be park rangers. And in doing so, we give a little bit more support to our sheriff's department, and then we would also look to potentially give them some official power to, approach residents more often and give them more information. We know that we have a huge park system, and our park monitors, it is their only job to go to every single park every single day. They work from 8 a.m. until 12:30 at night on the weekends, and then on the weekdays they're from about 2 o'clock to, again, midnight. So we see the value in that. And I will say, actually, it's interesting you say that, Lori. I did just pick up a flyer in our community center lobby that the state park has actually just rolled out, I think, as a trail volunteer program. So I actually grabbed that flyer and said, this is something we need to look at. So, and they get them in uniforms and they get them trained similar to the RSVP program. So I think there's a ton of merit and value in pursuing that. And that would go to build our volunteer program, which is also something we've discussed with the consultant of whether it's volunteering at programs, as simple as that, or looking at safety and security within our parks, just to have that presence more than anything.
Yeah, and at the same time, we can also talk about lowering the age requirement so that we can get more people involved in volunteering.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. I also have a question for you on the fees for the program. There was a lot made to do that. They're coming in, they're paying the city the fee but we're talking about, let's go to the pickleball instructor. We don't get all that fee, aren't we? We're only getting a small portion of it, right?
That's correct. So Riddell is actually a contract instructor of ours. We have about 70 or so contract instructors that work with us between aquatics and also our general recreation programs. So most of our contracts are 70-30 splits. So whatever we're collecting in revenue, the city only sees 30% of that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, understand that it's not necessarily, we probably barely break even when you base upon some venue or you base upon staff involvement.
Yeah.
So that's something we also should consider.
Absolutely.
Do you have any questions? So one of the things I brought up that, or at least maybe it was something that had already been on the slide, but I just highlighted it, was the idea of an endowment or a gifts program. It's something that I've been thinking about for a long time with an aging population, one that daily enjoys the beach trails, our parks, that has a real attachment to what San Clemente is. That I really believe that we would benefit from an endowment program that stands separate from our city general fund, separate from our operating budget, separate from our capital improvement programs, where if someone truly has been a lifelong trail walker and they'd like to leave a small endowment when they pass from their estate, that they can do so, and that will be dedicated solely towards keeping up the trail, keeping up that beach, that park, this place. You know, colleges are very successful in this, where they have amassed these massive endowments because of the contributions they've made to the lives of their alumni. And in many ways, with the city of San Clemente, you know, as a bedroom community, one that has really retained that small town charm, I have to believe there's a lot of people that are just as passionate about our park system, about our buildings, about what we offer. And so one of the things I'd really love to see from staff is this, you know, maybe there's one way to do it, at least that we could establish some type of endowment and gifts program that stands apart so that people know if they do leave a gift to the city, it's not going to be feeding general fund obligations and pension obligations and things like that, but really will go towards things that they love about the city. So I would love to do that, because I could see a lot of people finding and having that resonate with them in a very meaningful way, and being able to really take care of our amenities. So
it's a great idea, and you know, with my Peer Pride Foundation hat on, we're looking at setting up an endowment fund as we speak, and we're about ready to bring it to the city for consideration. But the Friends might be a really great place to put your idea, so that it's in a nonprofit place where the person that makes the donation knows that it's not going to go to a sewer fund, it's going to go.
yeah, I think there was an interesting thought on that. Maybe you can
Sure,
share
yeah,
your thoughts
Mayor
on
Brown,
that.
I think both your comments with back to the CARE program as well, right? I think a lot of agencies essentially have foundations that are supporting the entire agency and your needs and requirements, but also arms within that focus on philanthropic giving and endowments, right? So you're looking at a twofold aspect, where one side is sponsorships and individual giving for smaller areas that people want to support, and the other is where people are literally writing parks in their wills, right? Where they're saying that this is my legacy to San Clemente, it'll be used for this and only this and nothing else, and here's what that will look like. So you have the ability and the potential for both at a smaller level, for those who want to help with a bench, but also those who want to furnish an entire aspect of a beach for generations to come, because maybe they remember growing up and playing on that as well. So having a foundation and having, again, focused efforts on that, towards, on one end, the endowment and the philanthropic side, and the other, the individual giving / corporate sponsorship side, would be really a recommended best practice.
Yeah, I just, how I envisioned it is, you know, I feel like particularly an endowment that would potentially be of the size of the gifts we're looking to attract would have to have the weight and credibility of the city behind. Like if you're giving $1 million endowment for a beach, you want it to go to a city endowment foundation. Whereas I see the Friends of Foundation, where it's, yes, the smaller gifts, programs, naming rights and things, even smaller endowments, but for something as substantial as a peer donation, you know, well, maybe that's different because the Peer Pride has been established for that, but the beaches, the trail system, all the different things around town, we should have a safe harbor for people to be able to give and know that it's not going to be consumed in any other way than that area and the beautification and retaining it for future generations. And so I feel strongly that it's something I think that will resonate with a lot of our residents, particularly as it's aging and they want to contribute to the community. And it's something that, you know, as much as I love college endowments, you know, 4 years in your 20s doesn't quite match, you know, 50 years of beach trails and love, you know, that the community provides you. So I think we have a lot to offer. The other thing that I wanted to bring up as a part of this is we have $7.5 million in the short-term CIP, right? And there's the list here, not prioritized, I'm assuming, in any way. This is just the list. And so the devil really is in the details. One of the items that I know there's a budgetary consideration, but as we're looking at implementing and bringing these things into fruition, I'm intrigued by the idea of at some point of adding temporary staff to BPNR to help get these implemented and to help oversee, all of these on a short-term implementation plan. The idea of staffing up a position to implement this and then having to retain staff is something that this seems like something that we can get implemented and maintain with our current staff, but we may need an additional body for a 2 or 3 year period of time to get everything rolled out and implemented.
Mayor Brown, may I speak to that for a second?
Yeah, of course, please, yeah.
A couple places, actually several places rather, I should say, have what are implementation project managers for precisely that. So someone who is essentially tasked with carrying out the short-term implementation of the master plan. So while on paper, Councilwoman Donchak, you're right, it's 35 million. Really, best practices indicate at a 5-year point, you have to update your master plan. So anything that you're looking beyond a 5 or 6 year window on that is something you won't even consider till you get to that point and say, is this even still relevant? Or do we suddenly have an endowment that wants to fund one of these and they move higher up the prioritization scale? So again, as Councilman Swart said earlier, we're not saying you have to do every one of these things, but these are things that need to be done in certain order of priority simply by duration of time. So short term versus mid versus long term. But anything midterm or longer, those are things you should update your master plan and consider at that point. But to get to that point, having dedicated staff that focuses simply on the plan's implementation, building partnerships, working with different groups, implementing that would be probably the best way for you to go forward, given how limited staff is currently on their work and how many different hats I know Samantha and her team already wear.
Okay. Because I'm looking at some of these projects, for example, that would be a little difficult to sell as an endowment type gift project, like replacing the dumpster. That's not exactly something that's going to sell really
And
well.
why don't we just do that? It
Yeah.
says remove the dumpster for $1,000. Bam, done.
Yeah, exactly. The council contingency. But for example, one of the items it has on here is that, the field lighting at Maxburg Park, or replacing that. Maybe there's a baseball player who's a beloved field. So I wanted to labor the issue, but that is something I think we could even identify from this process, a half a dozen projects that we would pursue endowments for and see if there's somebody who'd be interested in that. Other than that, we have, the resolution is to adopt this as is. Are there any changes or comments we want to put into the record, Kathy?
I do have some.
Okay.
Samantha, talking about the CIP project, just a comment, number 3 in the 0 to 3 years, it was construct or expand the dog park. And in there, it kind of talked about maybe we would move a dog park or include it in different parks, And I can see why people want that. We don't have the yards, and people want to walk freely with their dog. And so I can see why people would want a dog park. It's the same as our open space, why it's so important to us is because we don't have it. Most of us don't have large yards, so that open space means so much more to us. So I would make a comment that I think the dog parks should be spread. I would like to see them spread in different parks, and I would like to see the large dog and the small dog separated where they're not in the same park. They're not adjacent to each other. So if you have a large dog, you're going to go to this neighborhood at this park so that we don't have that competing large and small, because there's some problems in that sometimes. The other thing that I saw is install the restroom at Linda Lane. Is that something that, because that's something that I heard it as mayor. Is that something that came up? I got this request last year.
Yeah,
So it's something, I just wanted to know how it got on here.
Yes, it's come up quite a bit, and it's always been a relevant problem
Okay,
that
wonderful.
we've seen.
So I know Mayor Brown has heard it again this year. One of the things that came up while I was mayor was also fencing at Linda Lane Park, and I brought that up to staff, but we're kind of waiting for this to come through. People came directly to me on this. They have small kids. Linda Lane's a very small park, and there's a street that wraps right around it where people shoot it. It's a right hard turn, and they go right up that hill really fast. If you have more than one child, or a child runs out into that street because of a ball, or you have more than one child and they step out, because the street's right there, I think because safety was such a concern, and it did come to me, I think it should be added in the 0 to 3. I don't think it's I don't know that it's
Talking
expensive.
about the fencing component with the
Fencing
bathroom?
component, yes. Well, if you look at number 19, it says replace fencing at Ralph's Skate Park for $49.5. I was thinking like maybe because this was I don't want to make that decision, but just kind of lean that way where, because that's a safety issue at this current park, that maybe we should focus fencing there. I'm sorry that I didn't get it into this, but it came up while I was mayor, and I had more than one request for the bathroom and fencing.
The
And I was
fencing
expecting
along-
it to be here.
It's along.
The playground part at Linda
Oh.
Lane, because that's where the kids are, where the Maxburg, we put the slide and all that.
Yeah.
There's no fencing around it, and that's a really busy street because it's right by the beach. So it was a concern that came, and I was happy to see that the restroom was in here, but not happy to see that the fencing didn't make it.
Well, we don't need to have the fencing in this for the fencing to be done, correct?
No, that could be
Commission
something
can
that
still
we
come
bring
up.
to the commission and then to the council for final approval if
We
that's
could
an
just
action.
direct,
But why not?
go to commission and just, let's get that on and not worry about having to amend or adjust this. That's a.
Oh, you can.
Well, I wondered why this is in here. Isn't it for comments from us?
Absolutely, yeah, we're happy to take.
Yeah, it's fine. So just, do you want to amend it where the restroom and the fencing is together on that?
Right, I think it should definitely be in the 0 to 3 years.
Well,
fencing.
you have that project at the restroom at Linda Lane. Do you want to
Right.
just couple it with that, or do you want it to be a standalone?
You might look to do one of those master plan type kind of site specific, and we look at the whole park as a whole. There are some other opportunities in Linda Lane, including kind of a little wedding site towards the beach that we could also look at also. So it might be wrapped into
I just
there.
wanted to bring it up because I felt if I didn't, I was letting those citizens down that came to me when I was mayor and asked for that.
Yeah, we did remove hedging, and I do think that helped the line of sight, because I do remember that concern. So I think that helped.
What if we just added an item like it said in there, and it said just Linda Lane review and upgrades, and we know it
Including-
covers all the inclusive.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because safety was an issue, and one thing that I want to say about safety on our trails, especially the open space trails, is we need to do a better job of signage, but also signage to keep motorized vehicles off, because that is a safety issue, and that's one of the things that people complain about on the trails. I do want to see definitely more. I've walked them, and I'm not sure where I'm going on them. I always seem to get back, but I don't know them like Lori does.
So you want,
I
I'm
usually
sorry,
follow the dogs.
for
and
the,
they
for
know
the
which
master
way.
plan, you want signage to include motorized vehicles?
Yeah,
Is-
I think
for the action plan, that's too
You think
granular.
that's too-
No, that's too granular for the
Okay.
action plan.
Well,
I will
thought
tell
we
you
were
that
supposed
what
to
we're
give you
doing, we're
comments.
working on right now is a trail sign package.
Okay,
And we'll bring it to the
probably more
council, and it will be
appropriate
all
with
encompassing, and every trail will have the same system on it.
Okay, on fitness amenities and adding, fitness and wellness in that section with swimming and aquatics. I think we can also get more of our seniors in there, and that's something that I've been trying to work with, what is that, Village San Clemente? To try to get them to start going to the Only Handsome Beach Club,
Sure.
just to get in there. I said the part about the Dogs Beach. What are we doing to look at pickleball? Because that's another senior program that we could start.
Sure. So certainly San Luis Rey does come to the forefront at that, and that's why we would look to initiate that as our first site-specific review, looking at that lawn bowling facility. And there are 4 tennis courts there as well. In the interim, if we're looking for a really immediate solution, I'd be happy to bring to the BPR Commission for review a temporary line setup that we can kind of double over a court. There is some issues with taking away tennis courts. Tennis is also a very popular sport in San Clemente. We didn't hear from them tonight, but they are still out there. So we have to be cognizant and wary of that. But that would be something we would look at through that equity mapping that Nile presented as well, to see where the overlap is, and then dual purpose another tennis court. And that's a pretty immediate solution as well in the next couple of years we could look at.
Okay. And I would ask Councilmember Donchek, what is the opportunities for connectivity for our trails, other than what we already have?
Well, it's almost exclusively education, just so that people understand. For example, if you park at the maintenance plant down at the end of Pico, if you go left, you end up over at San Clemente Summit. If you go right, you end up over in the park system over by San Onofre. And you can take that then over across the freeway to the beach trail. It's all connected. It's just that.
So it wasn't physically trying to connect trails. I took it
There are
literally.
some places that would certainly benefit from either having a shade structure or, you know, a better sense of arrival in terms of signage and mapping, but they are connected.
Okay. And then one of the part on fees that, you know, we talked about fees in here. When we look at waivers, if we can look at, when we waive it for a certain organization, what the balance is of what they give, but also maybe consider a minimum waiver, even if it's a waiver, there's some fee still, not a complete zero to the Parks and Rec. I thought maybe a minimum fee would be something that we could figure out would help the city.
Absolutely.
Something
We're
like
working
that.
on a policy too that will address more specifically fee waivers, and we are revising our existing partnership policy that just needs to be updated and revamped as we are getting a lot of fee waivers in. And our mission at the end of that is we're not going to waive deposits. Those are refundable anyways. And we're also not going to waive our hard costs as well. That's kind of like our bottom line.
Okay. And then one last question. On pickleball, what constitutes, how many courts do you need for a tournament?
I would
wasn't
have to
explained.
ask 8 or
Eight
more.
or more. So these other cities that have that, that's why they've put in 8?
That's the equivalent of 2 tennis courts.
Yeah, but one tennis court will house 4 pickleball courts.
Okay.
And most
So
tennis
16
courts have 2 courts, so we end up most going to accommodate.
So if we restriped one now, we could, that could be 16 players,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Going back up to the original objectives, as you're thinking about the marketing, what excited me about this from the outset was it's a system, you know, and so I really encourage you to look for ways to brand us as a system. I don't know if the metaphor is the gems of San Clemente or the treasures of San Clemente, but something that lets people know that it's more than just the park that's closest to them or the beach that's closest to them. So I really would encourage you to do that. And then also, Neely, you said it 2 or 3 times, this idea of just educating people and making them aware. That's low-hanging fruit.
Sure.
And, you know, a lot of these capital investment projects take a lot of money and then we have to maintain them forever. If we can just get an awareness program out there that invites the community to participate in all these incredible things we have, I think that would go a long way.
Okay.
Steve? I think the only thing I'm curious, just from perspective, is a lot of the trail connectivity. If you know, there's so many wayfinding applications on our modern smartphones. You know, signage is a beautiful thing. You know, I love it, but you know, part of, for example, there's programs where you can go, like they have places where it's wayfinding. You place a spot and you hike to that spot and discover things. The geocaching, right? That's one of them. I would have to believe that there's a way that you could tie our trails together using, you know, an app, a wayfinding app from the city that would say, if this is your location, you take a right to go here, left to go here, mapping out, global look, you know, even like a picture of what it's like to walk along the trail. I'm just curious if you've run across anything like that in your experience, or if that's...
I do know that there are some cities in our area that actually have their own city applications, mobile apps, and it is all encompassing. They highlight parks, they highlight the trails, it really hits on, it's that source of information beyond the website, and it's a little bit more easy to navigate through because it's just really the highlights of what people are probably going to land on. Neely might be able to speak to it as well.
This is what I do. All Trails. So if you join All Trails, the app, and you allow them to let you what your location is, it comes out with, you can hike in Monarch Beach, you can hike in Laguna Beach. It is totally silent on San Clemente. So that would be the first place to go. Just get on the All Trails, because that's a very popular app for people that want to walk or hike. Or bike, yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious if any other communities have done
Well,
it.
I was going to say 2 options, either All Trails or create your own native app, right? So to Samantha's point, you can have something that has all your offerings as well as connectivity from point A to point B, or you get into an established system like All Trails that has everything built in, and all you got to do is upload your layers and your trails into it, right? So that would be the best option to do that. Having said that, though, Mayor Brown, I do hear this in a lot of places, that trail walkers still want something in their hand or some signage on the trail. As much as this technology, there is still something to it where I want to be able to stand and say, you are here, and this is what the rest of the system looks like. So I don't think it's either or, perhaps it's a question of both.
Well, perhaps if we're engaging in branding and next generation things, Beaches, Parks and Rec app might be the best way to go to kind of explore that, right? If we're going to be establishing a BPNR brand apart from the city, I don't know if anyone would want an app to pay their bills, but they might enjoy it to check out the amenities in the community. So just a thought as we engage in that branding. Are there any other comments?
Since you're the scout up here, a great Eagle Scout project would be to put mileage markers on some of the backcountry trails, because the way it is right now, it seems like you look psychologically and you go, oh, I just can't do that, and then you figure, oh, it's a quarter of a mile and then another quarter of a mile.
And we have standards for what those signs would look like?
We would need standards, because what's up there right now, it says like 0.5, and you don't know what that means. It's like, did I just do that, or is that what's, yeah. But yes, there are standards for that. So,
Has that been outlined in our trails?
I don't know. No, I guess not. But that's an anxiety, electric cars have range anxiety, so do hikers.
On a monthly basis, I will get 2 to 3 Eagle Scouts looking for things to do.
Let them, we need shades.
We have a list, a laundry list.
I'm just saying, like the trails for trail mapping, pictures along a trail, uploading it to all trails could be one project. There's a lot of different things that can be done.
Talk to Samantha. Just give me Samantha's direct phone number.
I will.
Send them my way.
Samantha
I'm at
at the
community
podium.
center.
I'll talk to the TV. Anyway, so with that, I don't have any more comments. Kathy, Steve?
Would you like a motion?
Go ahead.
No, you go. You're the former chair of...
I was ahead of myself. All right, so I move that we adopt resolution number 18-07, entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, adopting the 2018 Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Master Plan and amending resolution number 99-46.
Motion by Schwartz, second by Donchak. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I may thank you for the opportunity as well. Your support's been incredible, as has the community. I've never seen survey numbers exceeded to this extent, right? So that right there speaks volumes. And I specifically want to, call out one, Eric, who's been exceptionally helpful with this. I don't see too many assistant city managers be that engaged in park, beaches, rec master plans. So that's been phenomenal throughout the process. And Samantha, to jump in on a moving train halfway into a master plan and run this the way she has been outstanding. So you're fortunate to have her. If I were a city manager somewhere else, I would steal her from you. But thank you all for the opportunity.
We need to
very much.
redact
Thank
that
you.
portion of the tape. Go back.
Put a hit on that guy, will you?
Thank you all.
Samantha, seriously, come on now, I know. Thank you both. Appreciate your hard work.
Okay, next is a report from the Community Development Director.
May we take a brief 5-minute
got it.
break? I guess a brief 5-minute break. It's a 5-minute break. It can't be any briefer than 5 minutes. So let's take a 5-minute break. Be back at 8:15. Starting. We're going to get started.
Next item is
What, do we
report.
clear out the room here. This is,
Yeah. Report from the Community Development Director concerning council direction regarding a potential update for a leaf blower ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Good
My name
evening.
is Carl Steele. I'm the new senior planner of Long Range with the Planning Division. And this evening, I have my first item before you regarding a requested consideration of a discussion on leaf blower regulations. The agenda report contains some additional information on the different types of leaf blowers, our noise ordinance regulations, and different types that may be applicable to leaf blowers and the research on what other cities do. We're here to receive direction from the council regarding a potential leaf blower ordinance, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Kathy, I believe you agendized this one. Oh, no, Lori, it was you. That's right.
I wanted to, and she beat me to it.
Okay, so Lori, you agendized it. Do we have any cards on this, by the way? Oh, we do right here. Okay.
Let's hear the card. The cards.
So we'll go ahead and hear the cards. We have Terry Atsuki Kwa. Oh, no. I said that wrong. I'm so sorry. After Terry, I'm just going to stay with Terry. Michelle Schumacher.
Good evening. My name is Terry Otsuki Kwa, San Clemente resident. Thank you for allowing me to speak today about this important issue. And this is my first city council meeting, and I can see how much work it is to get through so many issues from the city, and so I appreciate the work that you do and the service you provide. Let me describe a typical scene at home. You have your windows open to let in the cool San Clemente ocean breeze as you work around the house. Then, unexpectedly, you hear leaf blowers from somewhere in the neighborhood. Then, it's a mad scramble to shut the windows. But before you have time to close them, that familiar odor of exhaust fumes flows into your rooms. The pollution is now trapped. It's made of chemicals like carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, nitrous oxides, and fine particles. Fine particles, or particulate matter, can remain suspended in the air for hours. Our children with their developing lungs and the elderly are most vulnerable to respiratory illness as a result of particulate matter lodging deep into the lungs when they breathe. Years ago, the Orange County Grand Jury issued a report on the harmful effects of gas engine leaf blowers. I have copies of this report to share with you today, and I believe you all have a copy. It was passed out before. As you'll see, the report is quite thorough and vetted. It recommends that Orange County cities and school districts ban the use of leaf blowers. The grand jury asked these entities to respond to the conclusions of the report. So one of my questions today is whether or not the city of San Clemente issued a response. I've talked to many folks in San Clemente about this problem, and inevitably, once they understand how dirty leaf blowers really are, they usually agree that it's time for an alternative. So it is my hope that we can follow the lead of other communities and ban the use of gas engine leaf blowers from San Clemente. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Michelle Schumacher. Following Michelle is Paul Cohenstofer.
Well, thank you for everything on the toll road, and for you guys are all just so awesome up here. I have so much respect and admiration, so thank you for everything you do. So I live in Timbuktu in Talega. It's supposed to be really quiet, but it's not. We have like gardener after gardener after gardener. I actually don't use the leaf blower because it harms birds and beneficial insects' ability to live in a yard, so I like to leave my leaves for just creatures. And we have a pollinator-friendly front yard. My backyard's edible, so I wouldn't use the leaf blower, but every neighbor I have is like all day long. If you're on a conference call, very disruptive if you work from home. So we breathe what they blow. And just keep in mind for a second, landscape companies spray 800 million pounds of cancer-causing pesticides a year in America in our yards. Leaf blowers blast those cancer-causing pesticides into the air, and then we breathe them in. So the particulate pollution permanently inhibits lung growth in children. That's been studied. You know, you can go from 45 mile an hour to 200 mile an hour to wind blowing, depending on your leaf blower speed. And just think about what that's blowing in the air. Animal feces, heavy metal, pesticides and herbicides. These particles lodge deep into your lungs and can even enter your bloodstream. So I'm so hopeful that you guys adopt this tonight. When we lived in Laguna, they had a leaf ban blower. Our gardening bills were not more expensive. They used a rake, and it was just peaceful. It was so peaceful. So I hope you pass it. Thank you.
Paul, following Paul is Sabine Cooney.
Yeah, I saved what I wrote on my phone. I'm a resident of San Clemente on the west side, and I live fairly close to the beach in very close quarters with my neighbors. So I personally don't have a leaf blower, but nearly all of my neighbors hire the crews to come to my neighborhood, and this is a daily thing. So here's what I wrote. For over a year, I have been talking to some of our city officials regarding the health, noise, and environmental impacts caused by the daily use of leaf blowers on our community. San Clemente is known for its beautiful beaches, amazing weather, clean air, and peaceful coastal living. In recent years, our quality of life, peace and quiet, and health have all been compromised due to an increasing number of yard maintenance crews whose main tool of choice has become the loud and polluting gas-powered leaf blower. These machines have become more than just a nuisance. Daily leaf blower noise can be heard throughout our small beach town and neighborhoods, as the sound of their motors can carry for miles, and much more intensely heard if they are right next door or across the street. Not only do their motors far exceed most city noise ordinances, but they are also incredibly polluting. The emissions from only one half-an-hour blowing session from only one leaf blower puts out the same amount of air pollution as a full-size pickup truck driving over 3,800 miles. Just think about how many of these leaf blowers are used within the city in one day, and the pollution impact becomes astonishing. Not only is their exhaust very unhealthful, but more so is the toxic dust and particulate matter that is dispersed by them. This harmful air pollutant cocktail can include pesticides, allergens, various poisons, animal waste, brake dust, and whatever else settles on the ground or on hardscapes. This toxic mix of exhaust and fine particulate matter are blown up into the air that we all have to breathe. Forced air and noise have no boundaries, so many people are affected by the leaf blowers rather than just the one person operating one. Leaf blowers have also been linked to hearing damage and hearing loss. There also have been studies that have found that our neighborhoods have fewer nesting songbirds due to the disruptive loud noise associated with portable machines, these more portable machines. So, would you rather be able to hear the wind through the trees, the birds singing, and maybe even the waves breaking? Or would you rather choose the frequent and annoying sound of a distant or close revving leaf blower? Do you want to be able to breathe deeply and freely without worrying about what cancer-causing air pollution is being unnecessarily spewed from another's maintenance tool? This is an occupational hazard that we are all subjected to, even if we are on our own property or inside of our own homes. This is a citywide problem about our health and quality of life that should supersede any landscape crew's convenience.
Thank you, Paul.
Many fine cities in Southern California across the nation have already banned these leaf blowers because of their daily environmental impacts.
Paul.
Please do the right thing for the residents of San Clemente. No
You're not
more
helping
loud
your
noise,
case.
no more loud noise, no
Paul,
more
thank you for your
pollution,
time.
and no more leaf blowers. Thank you for listening.
all we ask is a little bit of respect for the time allocated.
Waited here for 2 hours to be able to speak, so I appreciate it.
When we've been here all day. Next is Sabian CUNY.
Good evening, Tim Brown and the rest of you. It's the first time I'm speaking. My name is Sabine Kuhne, and I am a resident and homeowner here in San Clemente. And I'm against those leaf blow dryers because they disturb the peace and quiet in our homes. And it's not just loud noise, it's also the pollution, like you heard before. I want to have a quality, healthy life in San Clemente and be able to open windows without being worried about what my children and I'm breathing in. We are talking animal dropping, rat poisoning, section plant, fungus, dirt, and DBs. How do you feel about this? I don't know how you guys feel about this, because I can tell you I sure don't like it. Nor did the cities of Hermosa Beach, Los Angeles, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, Santa Monica, and many other cities. Because those cities' officials responded by banning the use of the powered leaf blowers. If you are thinking maybe leaf blowers aren't that bad, I ask you, why do you think over 60 cities, major California cities have all banned them? What do they know, what we don't know? Why have over 300 cities nationwide banned leaf blowers? Because they pollute, because with the noise they drive people crazy, and because they make people sick and angry. Can you see how harmful and hazardous leaf blower can be? So the use of the harmful objects needs to stop here in San Clemente, and I think the negative health impact of those leaf blowers is a reason enough, really, to stop this. And you know, even if you're planning about those beach city planning parks and walking on the trails and have those, you know, leaf blower disturbing you, I think it's unbelievable. Those leaf blower doesn't make any sense. I mean, there are other tools to use. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope, thank you for considering this.
Thank you, Sabine. Lori?
A quick question on the grand jury. Do you know what year this was? It looks like 1999? Yeah, that's what I would guess based on the bibliography. Okay, thank you.
Laura, you brought this item up. Maybe you could give us some direction on what you're looking for.
Okay, first of all, Carl, welcome to San Clemente. You write a great staff report. So this was really well done, very practical and very actionable. I'm inclined to support staff's recommendation, which is to send this to the Planning Commission. And the steps would be reaching out to potential stakeholders related to the ordinance, such as landscaping companies and South Coast Air Quality Management Districts, to get their input. Discuss with Public Works, switching city maintenance over to electric immediately, because, you know, just like with styrofoam, it's like we should hold ourselves to the highest possible standard. Discuss with code compliance regarding preferred methods for enforcement related to leaf blowers, should additional restrictions be contemplated, and then direct the Planning Commission with, under the supervision of staff, to prepare a draft ordinance. And with consideration to several things. One is you've got this great best practices chart of all the different cities in Southern California, that they consider what other cities are doing with a specific eye toward decibel levels, hours of operation. Certainly this gas versus electric, that's an idea whose time has come. And then there seems to be a product out there that's a vacuum versus a blower. I would like to have that at least contemplated as an option, because I think it was Ms. Schumacher who just said we breathe what we blow. And so if there's a tool out there that eliminates that, that would be a really great step forward, preferably electric. So that would be my inclination. And the staff talks about an adjusted, this is actually a new ordinance because we don't have one specific to leaf blowers. And I kind of feel like it's just something that we should have done, and now let's just do it.
Are we signaling to the planning commission what our intention is for the ordinance to look like at this point, or are we looking for more of an organic product from them?
An organic product from them, but I would like them, those 4 or 5 things I mentioned, I'd like them to kind of weigh in on those, discard them, include them, whatever is their direction. But yes, I would like the ordinance. We don't have a sample ordinance attached here, for example.
Okay. Kathy?
I think, I said it before, this was contemplated that our noise ordinance would take care of this, and because it didn't it does say blowers if you go to the noise ordinance, but I doubt many of the gardeners are doing that. So they specifically, what the other cities found is you have to specifically state out no gas-powered leaf blowers. Certainly other cities have done it. If the entire LA city can do it, I think we can do it. They found that it was enforceable. You know, they rely a lot on neighbors, and certainly I'm lucky I only have one that comes in my neighborhood, and it's a home that's across a canyon. They have no lawn. They only have a patio and little walkways on it, and they have 2 gasoline leaf blowers, 2 men on it, and they're on the sides, and they spend 1 hour every Saturday. And I think they do it because that's their designated time that they're supposed to spend there, and they have nothing else to do. So they just wave those around. So certainly for an hour, we can't even talk on the phone. So the gas-powered ones definitely need to go. I also would like to see staff and planning commission look into spelling it out that the debris is supposed to be picked up, and it's not okay to just blow it into someone else's yard. I've seen other cities do that. I think LA did it. They specifically say what's an infraction and what's not. So it's not just having the gas powered. If you have electric, you can't just put it into the gutter and now it's going into our ocean, things like that. So I think for a beach city, it's important to spell that out also.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. And in reviewing everything that's been provided to us and all the write-up, nice job. The only one I would recommend as far as following generally the procedures would be the Dana Point. I think they've got it down as far as hours of operation, the noise levels, the fact that you can't blow on any other's property. You can even, put in the ordinance whatever you want regarding which way the wind blows. But as far as the concept of outright bans, full bans, I won't be supporting that.
Yeah, I find myself more along the lines of liking what Dana Point has done on this question, which is to add some regulations around the use of it, probably more in line with what we've done here. But I'm willing to look at the organic process that comes out of the Planning Commission. Sounds like we've all kind of made up our minds, so I'm not sure what we're sending to Planning Commission. I mean, everyone's coming with an opinion here. So, are we going to be looking at this with new eyes when it comes back, or have we all kind of made up our mind already?
No.
Okay,
No,
all right.
I'm totally open, and I'm also appreciating all the different levels of detail involved in putting together an ordinance. Do we want noise levels or don't we? Is it gas, electric? Is it city versus residents? There's a lot of variables that need to be considered. It's an air quality issue, and it's a noise issue, and
it's actually a health.
Yeah, and we're silent on it in a way that all these other beach communities are not.
I'm interested to see what they come up with. I'm particularly interested to see in terms of relative impacts on our community. For example, banning a leaf blower because of emissions quality control and having the 5 freeway within 500 feet of my home seems a little...
We do what we can.
Yeah,
we can't control that.
But I would like to see in terms of relative impacts, I think the Planning Commission should contemplate that. I'd love to see a little bit about, some of the impacts on dust debris and what that is, or versus not having those in place, the additional costs or hours that our planning staff, our park staff would have to have if we did a full ban. Which I haven't heard.
We're talking about a full ban.
I haven't heard support
we'll
for here. Okay, well then we should preclude that from probably our conversation, at least provide some of that direction.
I said gas powered. I think you said gas powered, but you wanted it to be.
gas power.
Right,
Okay, all right.
eliminate. We
So-
didn't talk about a full ban.
Okay, well, that's just part of some of what the ordinances have done here. Yeah. So anyway, I'd love to see what they come up with. I need to be educated on this, frankly. I've read about it peripherally. I've seen, for example, what does a CARB compliant motor do versus one that isn't? Because California also is subject to a different standard or quality on this because we have CARB compliant motors on our generators and these items. So how does that affect the emission standards? There's a lot of details. I have also stated in the past, I don't really like bans per se, so it would take a lot to get me to that point,
I would agree with you. The only thing that I can tell you is that someone that suffers from allergies and has to take Allertec or Zyrtec every day, if I pass a gardener that is using a gas-powered leaf blower, I have an immediate immune response to it, and that's with medication. So there is definitely something to that.
Well, I think we'll learn a lot in the process. I think we provided enough direction with these comments.
I saw one shaking her head.
She's like, more than enough.
Yes.
Thanks for all of your opinions.
Mayor Brown and council members, thank you for all of that. That's excellent input to staff, and it's plenty for us to work with to get started on this.
Great, thank you.
And to your decibel point, when I was reading the 70, 60, 50, having done the quiet zone for the trains, it's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, these are loud, and so it'll be interesting to see.
Thank you. I think we have the direction we need to proceed.
And next is a report from the Public Works Director, City Engineer, concerning a grant submittal to OCTA for the San Clemente Trolley and Rideshare beta test rider programs.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of the council.
Geez, Tom, you know how to clear a room.
Yeah. I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Every time you come here, that's happening.
Everyone left is paid to be here. I want you to know that. Everyone left is paid to be here. That is a resounding,
love.
it's a vote of confidence.
All right. Mayor Brown and members of the council, Tom Vonnegut, Public Works Director. I do have a few slides because I'd like to make a few key points, and then I'll turn it over to you for questions. As you know, I know you're all familiar with the current route of our summer trolley and the hours of operation. The point of this information is to simply highlight that under the current grant we have from OCTA, which supports the majority of the funding, that grant covers a Friday through Sunday operation. And if you recall, your council added Thursday service and you extended service through September, which was not covered by the grant due to the popularity of last year's summer trolley. And so I bring that up because it's important, because right now that was a one-off, and absent further direction or funding, this summer would go back to that unless we're successful in a grant. So just keep that in the back of your mind. In December, you asked us to explore in more detail these three options. Number one is fairly straightforward. That just takes the same route we have with the same number of vehicles, and instead of doing this Friday to Sunday or Thursday to Sunday operation, we would go daily service between Memorial Day and either Labor Day or September again, if that's your desire. I'll talk about the other two options really briefly. You also asked about a northern route expansion. So as we explained in the staff report, if we were to do that, it looks something like this. This is a little better quality map. This would require 2 additional vehicles. The idea would be to get up to where Dana Point is planning on modifying their route. They are planning a stop on Camino de Estrella, basically near Camino Capistrano up there at the border between San Clemente and Dana Point, as shown here. So the idea is we would be expanding our route so that 5 trolley vehicles would be circulating on this route. The 3 green stars depict anticipated additional stops on the way up and back, so that the DMV shopping center there at Vaquero would be a stop. It looks like a destination that would generate ridership at the corner of Miracosta and Camino Capistrano, and then Miracosta near Estrella to service the Sprouts shopping center, Dana Point connection, and then the 2 other stops back. So as I mentioned, all 5 trolley vehicles would be circulating here, but they would make stops at Metrolink and the outlets in both directions, so that if your trip originated at the outlets and you just wanted to go downtown like you did last summer, you wouldn't be forced to first travel all the way up to Dana Point to go down, or vice versa. I should mention that also another way to skin this cat is to have this as a separate route and basically have 2 trolley vehicles on a, call it a route number 2, a blue route, what you will, and you'd have a transfer point at the outlets, and we would be running our core route, and then we would be running another route, and people could make a connection likely at the outlets would be the concept. The only downside potentially is that you're forcing people to make 2 connections to get to the Dana Point trolley instead of 1, but it is an option. And this, like I said, does require 2 additional vehicles, and so there are timing challenges to be able to do this summer. As I noted in the report, we really don't think it's possible even to lease vehicles and get them ready in time for summer service, and we can explore that more. The southern route, as depicted in your report, this is not new. This is the same as what we had explored the first go-around in the trolley. And we can talk about stops. I haven't shown them here. Again, we're depicting it as another route. It could be added on to the overall route. It requires 3 vehicles to meet service time, so it's even more money. And it's staff's recommendation at this time and the consultants that if your council's inclined to expand the trolley, we suggest you go north. Now, we think that'll be much more competitive for an OCTA grant because it actually now completes an earlier vision of the Tri-City Trolley. It provides regional connectivity. Someone could actually travel from San Clemente through Dana Point all the way to Laguna Beach if they wanted because of the way Dana Point's trolley connects and into San Juan. And we just think that that has a benefit that would really help the application score well. Certainly, you wouldn't be giving up on this, but our recommendation is a measured expansion, go north, and then you can come back to this again in another call. So that's what I'll say about that. This is a table in your report, and the point here is just to give you a flavor of what the city's outlay and financial obligation would be. It's the city share cost on the far right side. And this grant call is slightly different before. Currently, we have a 7-year grant. OCTA has scaled back slightly the time frame between 3 and 5 years, so we've just laid it out as a potential 5-year program, and to give you sort of the most conservative estimate of what the city would have to lay out for funds. Also, I should point out, I was incorrect in the staff report. Originally, the current trolley operation was envisioned to use general funds as a match. We are currently using air quality funds, but those do have some restrictions. They can't be used in perpetuity. And so on our current service in a few years, we'll have to use general funds. So my message here is if your council's inclined to go whichever direction you want to go, we should be prepared to at least use some general funds, perhaps almost exclusively. The air quality fund balance is getting kind of low. But here's the impact depending on the level of service. Route, the northern expansion, again, 2A and 2B, the only difference there is if we match the weekend service that we currently have, or if we go to a daily, you can see what that does to the costs. A brief note about the Rideshare, which is our SC Rides with Lyft. I do have Tom Frank here. He can give you a current update briefly if you'd like, but the point I want to make is that is a more limited scale pilot program, as you're aware. It's a 2-year funding agreement, which would actually run out later this year. If your council's inclined to continue on, and we're actually still finalizing certain details in anticipation of a formal launch about 1.5 years into our test program, that we would expand the program. And there are a lot of reasons for that we're learning along the way. This is new stuff, and it's good information, but and Lyft had to do a lot of things too that just, they're learning as well. That we could extend it up to 2 to 3 years. This is what would happen. This is general funded. Air quality funds cannot be used for this program. And so over a 3-year extension, we would expect to, if we maximize the grant and the match that OCTA would offer, about $180,000. And if the program became really popular, we'd probably have to cap it unless the city council was ready to commit more funds. There is a complimentary ADA service that's required, and that's more expensive because that provides the ability for users to get an ADA equipped vehicle for that kind of a ride. So in closing, and I'm happy to answer any questions, right now the recommendation and the resolution before you is if you're inclined to submit a grant applications, we have it set up that we would recommend a 2-part process where for this coming summer 2018, we would request funds to expand the trolley service to daily. to be able to do that. That's a relatively straightforward. We would start with our operation as normal. As soon as we got funds, if we were successful, we could expand it to daily. And then part 2 in 2019, to give us time to get vehicles, lease them, buy them, what have you, to do a northern route expansion, we would implement that as part of the grant in 2019. It's nice that OCTA has this grant call. It would have been nicer if we had 3 more months, because there's just a lead time. Even for leasing vehicles, I've got a 45 to 60-day time to get them ready, committed, and I need funds ready to commit. No one will commit to a lease and reserve vehicles if I can't do that. They say, sure, we can talk in July, but if I don't have vehicles, I don't have vehicles. So there are some real challenges in expanding a route where I need vehicles, but to increase the service can happen fairly quickly with our vendor. So with that, happy to answer any questions, and we'll look for direction you may have.
Just to check, no cards on this item, I would assume, just want to confirm. So I had a long conversation with Tom a little bit earlier today about the 2 items that are before us. The first is, I'm intrigued to hear the council's thoughts on the idea of having the single line going through the outlet mall, connecting all the way to Dana Point, and doing that on one continuous loop. Meaning you'll still have the 15, it's adding 2 trolleys, and you'll still have the 15 minutes per stop. The one thing that, and this is why I chatted about like a blue line versus a red line, is the one thing is that right now it seems like the popular option is pier to outlet, back to pier. And it's because it's a loop, it's contained within San Clemente, it's, there's a lot of good sightseeing, there's a lot of businesses.
The willing way it goes, really.
Yeah, right, and so that seems like it's been very successful. I'm not sure what the reception would be to take that and to elongate that loop all the way out to Dana Point. So let's say you just wanted to do a loop and just to kind of do some sight. Well, you're going to end up in all the way going to Dana Point, I don't know, probably another 20 minutes on the trolley before you come back to North Beach and then back down to the pier. And Tom made a really good point in this conversation is you could flag certain trolleys like north and southbound. So let's say you end up in the outlets and you really don't want to make the loop to Dana Point. You could get off and catch what is considered to be a southbound trolley, that it's not going out to Dana Point, it's coming back down to the pier. So there's ways of addressing that in I think good ways of addressing that. But I want to get it philosophically, because let's say, for example, we have the red line that just does a loop to the pier. It would be a lot easier. It would be easier in my mind to add the blue line going to Dana Point that would connect with it, and then at some point add the yellow line, which would be the Southwest San Clemente, that would, you have a central point like a subway system where they'd all intersect, and you could catch one of the 3, trolleys, or you could connect to one to connect to the other. That may be too complicated. Maybe what we need is just a single trolley, and you take it wherever it takes you. But I wanted to get the thoughts of the council as to what felt like it would be received best. Because, as you know, doing something like this, you launch it and then you change it up, and people are like, no, we hate it. What did you guys do? You messed with something that was already pretty good. So that was the first thing to consider. The second thing I wanted to talk to was when it comes to the grant application for the SC Rides with Lyft. I've always been a big fan of this program. It's something that I think has been a benefit to the community. When it was originally conceived, I'd always imagined that it would have that as budget was running low, that we would be able to attenuate the price accordingly. So for example, if our usage rate was really high through the first quarter, or let's say that you even had riders that were using it too much, that they would have to contribute more and more as our budget was getting eaten into. So you could almost attenuate the interest that way, So if you're getting too much demand, you raise the prices a little bit and help to try and get it so that it's sustainable over a longer period of time, as in instead of 3 months of rides and then nothing for the rest of the year. And so I don't know if that's part of this grant application. That's something that's more fill in the blanks later, but I'd really like to move that direction, because I think if it remains as popular as you told me, there are some people that have written it over 500 times. They've capped out on coupons.
Is that? That's correct, yeah.
So that means you've had it 500 times. I mean, that's amazing to me. I never thought you'd get anybody over 100. And so that means we're getting use, but that means we're getting use. And so, maybe we need to figure out a way so that it can be balanced across a wider range of people. And maybe that's a higher contribution amount on an annual basis. Maybe year one it's $2, year two it's $3, and year three it's $4. So those are my only two thoughts right now.
I actually thought that was going to do the same, I had the same concept, that it was going to change in future years. And they were going to have to start contributing maybe more money to it.
I think, so
That's probably
Tom
what-
is our SC Rides expert, so I wanted him to address that and what we could or couldn't do in that regard.
Tom Frank, I'm your Transportation Engineering Manager. Good evening. Yeah, we do have that flexibility, and I will write that into this application. That's one way that we can control costs, because there's two ways that we can control it. One is to elevate the user's share, and then the other is to put a limit on the use of the coupon. So those are two ways that we can control budget. So I think it's a great point.
Are there really, how many power users are there that are 500 rides and above?
We really don't know. I shared with you the earlier numbers we're receiving for the first 4 months, and after that, Lyft has been negotiating with OCTA to come up with the reporting data, and they
Right.
quit providing user information. From what I can tell from talking with Lyft, I don't know if you read the article in the paper, but I said somewhere between 50 to 100 users per day, but that's really just a guesstimate.
Go ahead.
Just so that we all know, this service is probably a good portion of our most needy citizens that don't have the capability for transportation. We're also using this to mitigate parking issues. So let's keep the whole picture in mind while we're looking to adjust it, just so you know. And I'm not going to recuse myself, but my son uses it a minimum of 3 times a week, if not 6 times or more a week. He's on the spectrum, he's 20 years old, but he can't drive, and he used to take the bus. There is no bus. So this is his only way for transportation in this town, because we don't have bus route. Other than the trolley. But he can't get to the trolley without going on Lyft. We don't live by the beach. So that's what we should also take in consideration when we're looking at all this and talking about adjusting rates. We could be adjusting rates from the people that need it the most and making them pay for it more. So let's just keep that in mind as we review all this. I love the concept and the little cost involved to go daily service.
Right.
I think we got so much ridership during the summertime that I think for another out-of-pocket cost of $62,000 to be able to go the entire week during the summertime, I think it's a great idea. And then I would consider expanding north, initially just the weekend service because of cost-wise, see how it connects with Dana Point. And I also wholeheartedly support our mayor's concept of having maybe a red line and a blue line, so that when you go there, you get on the northbound or go on the southbound and connect in the one spot at the outlets. I think it just seems to make better sense. It just seems to be clear, because a lot of people aren't going to want to go to the outlet and then have to ride all the way up to North Beach to turn around and come all the way back down to get to the pier. So if you run most of them that way and run a few up the other way, maybe that's the way to work.
Question. Do we then make the trolleys a different color if they're a different line? Is that the easiest way? How are people going to know what trolley is going north and what's
Funny,
going
because
south?
I actually thought about that. Do you make
When
the
you
other
said
ones
blue line and red line,
and
I was
yellow?
like-
I just would have those signs on the side that talks about it, just have one color, have another the other color, and they can see
Well, I
right there.
like it.
Or a lot of the time they have a
Or just have a thing that says on a
bar
blue
window.
line, a card that you put in the front, as you say, private party, you can
Yeah.
say.
They do, but I think the colors might be cool, because I was thinking that then if we finally can go south, that would be kind of cool to have one that goes down south that's another color. And you would know which one to get on without having to go to the front and look at the card. I mean, it's just something to think about. I'm
The red
partial to
branding
the
is cool. I thought about that same thing. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
glad you
why
bring it up
I
because
thought you were gonna say
It's kind of an interesting thought that, you could have a red one, you could have a blue one, you could have a yellow one, depending on the green, whatever the case may be. That it would be pretty cool. I just don't, I don't know, I mean, from a branding perspective, you know, I don't know how well it would work. I just am trying to understand the typical rider and the popularity of that close, quick route. I hate to mess with that, you know, I don't know.
So we can always paint it white and have a red tile roof on top.
Well, what I was going to say, that's a good kind of problem to have, is how we would brand these or make them look. It doesn't impact what the costs that we put in now for the grant, and so we could come back and go through a process and work on that. There are a lot of ways to do it. Make it completely a different scheme, or just have something, a placard in the front, but we can figure that out later.
So for the grant tonight, even the routes, that's kind of something we can identify as, well, this loop or this one, we can keep that open, but we're just got to get the grant applied for right now.
Well, the grant would go in, we do, because we have timetables and there's detailed information that OCTA wants, we would need to fairly nail that down. Now, some adjustments on the stops, sure, we probably have some leeway to tweak that, but the route, the basic route, we do need to, because we've spent some time with our consultant to study it to make sure it works. If we start changing that and it changes from what goes in the grant, we may have some issues there.
Lori, this is your concept. What are your thoughts?
A couple of things. I support the line idea. I think that, you know, they say if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And so escalating up to daily service for the existing route, given our ridership, there's a lot of strong evidence for that. I would probably do the daily version of the Dana Point connection to keep it simple, because wouldn't it be a bummer if you got part of the way there and it's like, oh, it's not Saturday or Sunday. Yeah. So I think I would make it daily for the summer, and so it's simple for the rider. With regards to the Lyft program, and you probably know this, but there is a microtransit pilot program that OCTA is looking at, and it's with a vendor called Keolis. And we contemplated that at the last OCTA meeting. Check in with them and see if that changes how you would approach our application, because what Keolis does is allows riders under 18, which has been one of our big learnings. Yeah, and it's being, the Keolis pilot is, I think, being done in Huntington Beach and maybe Laguna Niguel even. But Mission Viejo, thank you. And so, but what it is OCTA sort of in the Lyft business. So it's on-demand ridership, but by our rules rather than the private sector.
Question.
Yeah.
Does this other program, does that address the issue that we have regarding being able to get the transportation without having a cell phone? Do they have the call stations and the other things that we alluded to where we're going to work on?
Do you want to talk about?
It does use an application.
Yeah, and it's an OCTA designed app.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, because I thought I read somewhere that we're looking forward towards to upgrade our stops so that we can put a call buttons so that people are able to call for a lift without having a cell phone.
No, we were going to allow for a number you could call to order, not fixed on the station. No, it was a.
That's correct.
We thought about a phone at some point that you could call.
Yeah, so that's right. We're going to be providing basically a toll-free number that people can call that don't have a smartphone to order a ride.
So I guess what's in my mind is if Keolis takes off, because so many of the frustrations of working with the private sector are removed, I'd love for us to have the flexibility to toggle over to that service under our existing grant if it happens that fast.
And I'll put in a line item in our grant application to allow that discussion to happen.
Perfect.
Right now, I did have the conversation with OCTA staff about that option, and they're launching it into 3 cities, which you had mentioned, including Mission Viejo. So it's really not an option that we could do in the short term, but this is a relatively short time period for the next 3 years, and we also have termination clauses, so if we want to make that switch, we could.
Because back to the comment about the big picture, we're doing this because our bus service was removed.
Absolutely.
And so there should be an expectation that we're made whole.
It's filled a community need, something that wouldn't be filled otherwise.
And one more thing, could you go to your money chart? Because I read the staff report and I couldn't figure it out. So in the staff report, yes, it says, the grant provides funding of no more than $555,000 annually. Yet if I look at the year one cost for 2B, or even 2A, far beyond that. So is there a blending option here where we can blend it over the 5 years?
So,
Funny I should
funny
ask.
you asked that, because I had that discussion with OCTA staff, and they said, well, that's a good question, because there is a difference between capital expenditures and ongoing operation and maintenance. And under our current program, which are under the same guidelines with respect to that funding cap, we did expend, we went over because we had 3 trolley vehicles that we bought. They were almost 500 just by themselves. So my question was, well, is that an average annual, so that, over the 5 years, and basically what we arrived at was just apply as how you want to do the program, and then we'll figure it out. So, but that's how it was interpreted. That's how it was interpreted the first go-around. So, because there is a distinction in the application between your capital costs and your operation and maintenance, and when you run them out for the 5 years, we're under an average annual 550. It just happens that in year one, on some of these options, we go up because we are making capital expenditures. They're pretty big. So. That's a long-winded of saying I'm not really sure, but we're following what we did last time, and that was our direction we got.
And we were successful.
And we
Okay.
were successful.
And then to a comment that was made, just to be clear, so city share, let us just say we were going to continue with number 1, and we chose 2B. So that's $250,000. That's over 5 years, so that's an outlay of $50,000. Is that basically the city's share from year 1
The
through
city share,
5?
you're correct. The city share is it's over the 5-year program, if you will.
So it's $50,000 a year, so
I'm
it's
trying to
less
tell you
than
what's
$1.
the total outlay you could expect to have to do to match this program. So that includes the year 1 cost. It's basically the total cost, the $625, which is the 5-year. So the OCTA is the 90% of that, and the city share is the 10%.
Okay, so if we were to pick 1A and 2B, that's less than $1 per resident for the whole summer.
One way to look at it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think 1A and 2B is also something I'm leaning towards. One of the things about that expanding north is that, the red line has been wildly successful. That loop has been wildly successful. And I think, a lot of people are like, roll it out, daily services. And this is, yes, but you don't want to kill, the goose that laid the golden egg. And so part of it is, I think, incremental growth. We expand the north daily service. Because the challenges of adding another line are going to present us with all sorts of knowledge. What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like? Do people make the connection? Is the ridership up? Do we need to integrate the 2 lines? Because that will inform the south expansion, right? And so it's a different challenge when you have those 2 loops working together, because, is it going to be similar where we've got the 3 lines that are operating, or do you just have one big long bus loop that people do? And that's what we have to go to, and we're going to learn that with this expansion of the north service. And so I would also choose 1 and 2B, also because Dana Point is doing daily service the whole summer. They're going every 15 minutes. They're going to have a bus sitting there at Camino Cap and Estrella, and we should probably have a bus there, if we want to really. And I think OCTA will appreciate that more than us saying, "Oh, no, thanks, we'll go south." I think that's part of what we're looking is to have a successful bid package, because the share is amazing, right? We're benefiting tremendously. So I also look 1 and 2B on those 2 items. I do lean more towards the independent loops, as a product. It would take education. It would take probably some signage on the outlets or North Beach, wherever it is. Maybe North Beach is the place. I don't know. I'd have to defer to staff, but I'd be interested to see how we could get that education level up on that.
And you're making a hugely important point. Keeping them separate, having them be 2 separate lines helps us with metrics, because, for example, in Laguna Beach, they have, 5 different lines. And some of their lines are, only 4 passengers boardings per hour, and others, the ones on PCH, are wildly successful. And so they're able to go in there and do diagnostics, exactly, yeah. So that,
And
So
go ahead.
I just suggest that we have the San Clemente red line, and then we have the blue whale line that goes up.
No, I agree.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
Okay.
Before the motion, do you need letters of support
From
from any walks of life?
Did we do that last time?
Yeah. Well, if
We
you
will-
think of any, let us know. We'll go
It
get
won't
them
hurt,
for
so
you.
we'll follow up on that.
Because
And
Boys and Girls Club loves the trolley, for
the
example.
recommendation and the resolution before you are sufficiently flexible enough so that, I'll just clarify for the record, the understanding then would be that you would, if you so vote, give us direction to do that, to submit applications for both of the programs. For the trolley specifically, we would structure it so this summer, we would request funds to expand it to daily service, and through September, which I think was still shown to be popular. And then in year 2, 2019, we would do a separate blue route, route number 2, and it would be daily service as well, starting in 2019.
That's right.
Is that great?
Yeah, so with the understanding that Tom just mentioned, I'll move that we authorize the submittal of...
Before you do that, I'm so sorry to interrupt. What about the idea of, so let's say we did 1 and 2B, as you just described, and it was wildly successful, like we expected. How long would it be for us to get another call for bids for the expansion to the south?
My crystal ball is not that good. I don't know when the next call would be. I think we probably 3-ish years, and so
What about-
we would have metrics then, and we would, we'd have good data. But
what about the concept of, and this is for the council to chew on, is that we say 1 this year, 2B next year, and then conditionally adding 3 year after that. And so, we would have the ability to be able to say contingent on the success of ridership of A to B, B to C, and then if we get the ridership on both of those, then let's expand to option 3. And if you can't meet the criteria or the metrics that, let's say, we set out in the grant program or whatever it is that the best practices are, then we just stay with 1 and 2B, and we stay within those lanes. So we're not committing fully to 3 at this juncture, but we have it as an option, like in year 3.
We'll put it as a placeholder.
I know it would, because the problem is
I'm
is
thinking
if,
how I'm going to do that. With
right.
this
I know.
application.
I'm throwing
And
a
I'm not sure
wrinkle
if I
at you,
can.
but the problem is if it's a 3-year call for projects, let's say we have the same success and it's wildly successful, and the people in South are like, this is great. When are you going to do it down here? We're like, well, we don't know. It's going to be probably 4 years. It would almost be like, you know what? Just in case we blew the doors off and we were successful, we have this here, and then we can exercise whatever. I don't know if you can exercise an option, but if it's successful, we meet the criteria, then it would just be a natural expansion southward. We don't need to do it in 1 year. We don't need to do it in year 2, but maybe in year 3, or maybe even year 4, right? We've got a 2 to 5 year cost, so.
And if you choose to do, should you accept that challenge, what's unique about the South Weekend service is it parallels the I-5, so it provides congestion relief for the I-5 freeway, which is of high-level interest to decision makers. So in terms of seasonal traffic relief, during the summer season.
It's something that's so far, it's far out. I think the capital impacts will be less too, right? Because our share we won't be implementing until year 3, and so it's going to be less than, what is shown here. But it also, by putting it in the same package, we could say, as part of the package, we've been so successful that we think that this next iteration will be successful. If we attain that success, we don't want to wait till the next call. We'd like to.
I have a question, just one quick question so I can understand. We need 2 cars to go north.
Mm-hmm.
We need 2 more cars to go south.
3 more.
3 more. So we're talking about $1.5 million expenditure on buying the cars on top of what we're showing here.
Did you say 3 to go south?
To go south, we'd need 3
That's why I'm
vehicles.
just saying we're biting off a lot.
I think the south, we could definitely increase the time. I don't think it needs to be every 15 minutes, but
I'll tell you what.
I think, our consultant never looked at that?
We looked at 30-minute intervals. That probably required just 2. I didn't detail that in here, but we have a report from
I
the
think
consultant.
southwest and southeast residents could go.
You don't think so, adding that as an option in year 3?
Can I say that I liked it, just real quick? Because last time when Lori mentioned this, she said, go big, ask, because our ridership shows it.
Will it affect
Just remind
the
me.
bid package by us getting too aggressive?
No. So this is my view. It's, I would be comfortable asking for all three because the seasonal traffic is significant in this part of the region. It solves deep parking issues, and we had our bus services taken away. And so there's kind of a fair and equitable component of being a city in Orange County that is in the OCTA family. But if we're going to put the three in, I would keep it simple and I would make our priorities clear. And I think I'm hearing consensus that number 1 is the top priority, 2B is the second priority, and 3, if there's a way to ask for it as a phased-in option. That's right. I wouldn't, in 2 years out. Just that we're seeing this as a system that unrolls in phases, and maybe go at it that way. That it's a system and it's going to be phased. But
And each one would build on the success of success in the past.
And will we get all three? It's hard to say because there's, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, the letters of interest are plentiful this time around. But and that's the thing. What I really like about it is it parallels the freeway, and we're trying to solve congestion problems in the region. And
parking.
If we're thoughtful about the parking, it could really help with a lot of frustrations that travelers have in the summer.
I think to your point is that if we establish clear priorities, we want this, we definitely want this, we really want this. This one, we would love to have the option to do it if these two are successful in year 2 or 3, right? Whenever that rolls around. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I don't know if the rest of the council is, but I think we could do it. I know it's going to take a little more work on your part on a short time frame, Tom, because I know you had already discouraged this. But I know he's super pissed right now.
I'm still churning.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, you're going to go back and kick his car or something. No, but what I'm saying is that I would rather take advantage of this, because if there's that many call-to projects, it could be 3 or 4 years before I have another opportunity to take a bite at this apple. So
I would just hate to have that third item throw us out completely of any consideration.
I don't think it will.
That's why I'm asking.
I don't think so. I think we're
Okay, so Ken, under those concerns, you want me to read this?
Yes, I think so, just in that order.
Knowing that our tom-toms will take care of the directions given, I move that we authorize, that we authorize the submittal of Measure M2 Project V grant application to OCTA for San Clemente Trolley and Rideshare Beta Test Rider Programs. And number 2, adopt resolution number 18-06, entitled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of San Clemente, California, approving the submittal of the San Clemente Trolley and Rideshare Beta Test Programs to the Orange County Transportation Authority for funding under the Project V Community-Based Transit/Circulators Program.
Second.
Motion by Schwartz, second by Ward. All those in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Godspeed, Tom.
And again, if you need letters of support, reach out, and there's a lot of happy users. And then also, just a reminder, beaches, to be competitive on the point system, Friends gave $10,000 the first time around. I don't think they're in the financial position to participate this time, but maybe they are. You might want to ask them if they want to put in another $10,000 for branding on the blue line, red line.
Thank you, Tom.
Good, thank you.
Oral Communications, Part 2, no cards. Under Reports, consideration of councilmember attendance at Southern California Association of Governments General Assembly Meeting, May 3rd and 4th, 2018.
So I asked to have this agendized. I'm our SCAG rep, and I cannot make this event, and alternate Schwartz cannot make it. And it's somewhere in the desert, La Quinta or something like that. It's of interest with respect to the toll road, because there are people, SCAG is where the long-range transportation plan ultimately lives. So I thought it was important at least to bring the option up to the other 3 council members if someone wants to go. There have been many years where San Clemente has not attended, so it's not mandatory. It's just that.
I went a couple of years. out there. It was interesting. Contributions were, opportunities to contribute were pretty limited, you know.
The way I looked at that meeting is you pretty much have to get it in what you want before that, right? And this meeting's somewhat educational, or do you think that, are you thinking networking-wise, it would be good for us to be there?
I do. They have a transportation committee that's in SCAG. I have the list of who the mayors are and the council people on that. However, it's a sizable time commitment, and an argument can be made that there's more strategic ways to engage with SCAG. But given that the toll road is one of our top priorities, I wanted to put it out there.
That would be a challenge for me. I'm a potential if nobody else could do it.
I can look into trying to do it. We don't have to decide tonight, right? It's just you're bringing it up. You needed it pointed tonight, Joanne?
No?
I don't think so. If you just want to authorize, if one of you is able to go, just let me know and I'll notify
Okay.
SCAG. Do
We'll
you want
just
to do that?
say
Leave
that
it
if one of the
open?
available council members could go. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I'll put it down.
City manager is asking if it could be a staff member, and I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know that either. I'll
We
find
can look
out.
into that and see if that is an option.
City manager? Okay. City attorney?
That's all. Thanks.
Council members?
Lori? Nothing?
I move that we adjourn back to closed session, and from closed session that we adjourn to the next regular council meeting, assuming there's nothing to report out from our outstanding closed session.
I don't think there will be, but we can adjourn from back there and then
We
make an
can, yes.
announcement. Yeah. Is that all
Okay,
right?
so we'll adjourn to closed session. At the close of closed session, we'll adjourn to the regular council meeting, April 3rd, 2018, in the council chambers at 100 Avenida Presidio. Closed session items will be considered at 5. The business meeting will commence at 6.